got mail.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 51st episode of Slime Time Sidequest, an official dope Dragon's Den podcast. This is your host, Pimpin' Plattym3.
And this is Yada 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 Yangus.
Booyah!
Eat my shorts.
Ooh, we're going to be getting jiggy with it.
Not.
Oh, excellent.
Aw, snap.
Take a chill pill.
Talk to the hand.
What's the 411?
Whatever.
Whew, hi. Got all that 90s slang out of our system now, so we can actually get on to tonight's episode.
That's a hella good idea.
Yangus, we're done with the slang. I just said that.
Sorry. Right. You know, I'm a kid of the 90s, so it's kind of hard to get out of that. Anyway, right, the episode. Tonight we're talking PC games from the 90s, an era of point-and-clicks, top-down RPGs, adventure games, and the rise of first-person shooters await. These kind of games were all the rage for PC users in this decade, and probably some other ones too that were not mentioned just a few seconds ago. But we've got plenty to talk about, and we got plenty of help to discuss games from this era. So, please say hello to Pendy, Twinkie, AustNerevar, Woodus, Virtual Mattcraft, Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen it. Oh, wait, hold on. Scratch those last four. Say hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
69 dudes.
Oh, Woodus. Cut to audience laughter.
Canned 90s laugh track.
I know. We need a laugh track. So we can get into that.
It'll just be like us laughing.
Yeah. No, we need to just find various 90s and TV sitcom. We need to get one from Full House. There we go. That's what we need to get.
Perfect.
Those guys laugh at everything.
Cut it
every time
out.
The sign tells them to.
Yep. We have we didn't mention Eel's here with us too. He's the one that's holding up the sign for the audience to applaud or clap or awe.
That's all he's doing tonight.
Yep. We didn't mic him up though, so you're not gonna be able to hear him unless he yells real loud.
He's probably swinging through the Bronx or something right now.
Yeah. See, we try and pay him and bring him on here, but he doesn't want to be a part of it. Try and give him a good job, give him health benefits. He's got a family to raise. He's got 12 kids. The guy can't even be here to show up for work.
You know what the contract says? The new SAG-AFTRA one, they got to be doing the work at least 15% of the time. I don't think he's going to make the cut this year.
I don't think so. Poor blue bastard.
Well, he's only got himself to blame, and we've got ourselves to blame here for having a bunch of us on tonight to talk about a bunch of games. But I don't know about everybody else. Maybe your memories will be better than mine. I was writing down my 3-4 games, and it kind of expanded, and I'm like, actually, everything I typed here might be about all I say, so shouldn't be. I was wondering if we'd be into the 3-hour territory, and then I was like, well, it won't be my fault when that happens.
Yeah, I'm just counting on people to talk with me about my game.
Yeah.
That's what my memory is.
I think we're all planning that.
Yes, hopefully there's more than one. I know, Pendy, you mentioned you'll be talking one of mine too, so at least I'm kind of good there. But all right, I will start in alphabetical order and then completely go away from that because I'll forget at that point. So, but I think the person may know who's coming up first. Aust, why don't you talk about one of your games that you remember from the 90s?
I need to change my name. Okay, so we'll start with Monkey Island. I was going to talk just about the first two, but I can briefly talk about the entire series. But it started out in the 90s. The first game, The Secret of Monkey Island, was a point-and-click adventure game, which was a genre first pioneered by Sierra Online, which you might hear some about throughout this probably throughout this entire podcast. But Monkey Island was developed by LucasArts. Actually, it was Lucasfilm Games at the time. That was before they were called LucasArts. But it's it's a point-and-click adventure game with a pirate theme. The player, controls the main character named Guybrush through an interactive story, exploring the environment and encountering quite a few puzzles along the way. Although many of them are probably quite a bit easier than other adventure games at the time. The sequel was very much the same thing, although it's just, I feel, probably a little bit better in the story department. The third game, I believe, was still a 90s game, if I'm not mistaken. Yet it featured hand-drawn art, almost looking like something from a Disney movie, which is ironic because Disney owns the IP now. But the rest, I think the fourth one was the 2000s, and then there's been a few since then. But to me at least, the core of the series has been the first two games, or the first three games really, with two being the best in my opinion. I think probably the most influential thing about the first one when it came out was that it was one of the, I don't want to say the first, but it was definitely amongst the first, if not the first, adventure game where you could not die, which was a thing that had long been a sort of bugbear about adventure games, that it had gotten to the point where some of them almost discouraged exploration because there were so many things you could do that would end up killing you. Things you wouldn't expect. And Monkey Island in particular never had anything really like that. You were always encouraged to explore, and you could feel relieved knowing that you could take your time with a puzzle without there being a time limit, or if you did something wrong, you weren't going to have to reload a save file. Mm-hmm. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say I feel like all I ever did in Sierra games when I was young. I never made it very far in any point and click adventure. I think I mainly played them with the kids across the street on their computer. That was more 80s, I guess, probably late 80s. But yeah, that's my memory. Like all the dumb, it might as well be like Dumb Ways to Die, the song.
Oh yeah, like King's Quest and Space Quest.
Oh yeah,
there's like 100 different ways you could die, and sometimes that was half the fun. It's like, how am I going to die this time? Oh,
when you got points for dying.
Yeah, I actually the first Monkey Island game I played was the third one, Curse of Monkey Island, and that was the one that I said was hand drawn art. Actually, it was the first one to have voice acting as well. But I got the first two not long after that and played quite a bit of those. And in my opinion, now having played through the entire series, I feel like even though the voice acting, I believe, in most of the most recent games has been really good, I feel like some of the humor is lost. It's just not as funny as when reading it and hearing it in your own head, at least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're just very well written games, and I don't mean that the plot is well written. I mean the dialogue. Very well written comedy, at least for the time. It has a little bit of that moon logic problem that old 90s adventure games had, where, I think, I don't know exactly how it's defined, but moon logic basically means, you solve the way to solve a puzzle is something that would only make sense from someone who lives on the moon, because it's like, like, when you figure it out, it's like, yeah, I can see how the hints that were given, could point to that, but like nobody's going to think of that naturally.
No, those games were notorious for that.
Yeah, for real. Monkey Island was probably not as bad about that as a lot of other games at the time, but especially, I guess, probably going back to play it now, I can't really say from personal experience because I know all the puzzles by heart at this age. But for someone new, might encounter that problem.
How many games total are there in the series?
See, there was the first two, which were done by the same guy, Ron Gilbert. Then there was 4, which was the first 3D game. That was the last one done by LucasArts. After that, Telltale Games did one, and that was like the mid to late 2000s. And then recently, the original creator came back to do Return of Monkey Island. That was 2022, actually.
I've always wanted to play those.
I mean, they're great. Yeah, if you have experience, if you enjoyed 90s PC games, especially point and clicks, I highly recommend this series. Probably above most all of them. I feel like it's probably it's definitely one, if you're interested in the genre, you shouldn't miss out on.
Cool.
Yeah, I remember hearing all the hype around the new one that came out last year. There's a couple podcasts that kept bringing it up, and I'm like, man, I've not heard of these games. And then I Googled them, like, oh damn, that's a while ago.
Yeah, that one was fun. It was a bit on the easy side, in my opinion, but I actually wrote a whole review on it on my blog.
Cool.
Alrighty, so I see our person. If I jumped out, I was going to say, Aust, do you have anything else? That didn't want to cut you off there, but that sounded like an ending.
No, yeah, I don't really have anything else on this.
All right. So, boy, you're all at the other end of the alphabet here.
Well, do you want to just roll into mine and one kind of plays off of that?
Why not? Yes. Like I said, I was not going to continue with the alphabetical thing anyway. So,
Second person,
go
we've
ahead.
changed the order already.
Yeah,
oh my
you just
god.
did it.
Just chaos.
Did it to
Quick
screw with
chaos.
me.
Chaos.
Why not?
I was gonna jump to Yangus at the end of the alphabet, but I see he's still putting some notes in there, so I didn't want to interrupt his train of thought. So we'll jump to
Don't
the
lie.
second.
You just did it. You just did this so I'd go first.
Yeah.
All right,
so,
Woodus, go ahead, take it away.
yeah. So to roll right off the Monkey Island, I was going to talk about pretty much most of the Sierra games: the King's Quest, the Space Quest, Quest for Glory, Leisure Suit Larry. It's probably the only company I've spent more money on than Square Enix at this point. Was all their games. I subscribed to their newsletter and everything. Their 90s games is when they came into the point and click era. Everything prior to that was the good old text parser where, it could take you an hour to figure out what word they're looking for to describe a certain item, but the point and clicks made that a little easier. So the King's Quest series was basically your fantasy dragon medieval kind of point and click game where you're helping the royal family get through different adventures in the land of Daventry. So there's there's one with one of the daughters. There's another one with the dad trying to find the family and different things like that. I remember going back to the old dial-up days when 7 came out. It had such a massive bug in it that I remember dialing into their bulletin board system to download the patch for it. And I think it took me 45 minutes to download that patch over my good old 14.4 modem back then. And then the second one, so all their games pretty much play the same. It's just they're all skinned differently. The second one that's along that is Space Quest, which you're following a bumbling janitor through space as he somehow saves the planet and dies in wonderful and mysterious ways all the way through. The third one in their group is Quest for Glory, which was originally named Hero Quest, and I had the original called Hero Quest, but they forgot to copyright the name, and the board game Hero Quest got a hold of it, which I actually own that board game too. But that was more, you had more skill points, and there were still quests to do, but you could battle monsters and learn spells and stuff like that in that one. And then Leisure Suit Larry was your basic 40-year-old guy trying to pick up women in his leisure suit and usually unsuccessful at it. So total hilarity when he's trying to find different women to pick up and the things he has to do to try and win their love and get shot down while trying. So the one thing I remember about Leisure Suit Larry was, too, it was supposedly age protected. So to get into the game, because my buddy in high school had it, and we'd share the discs back and forth, which, you're not supposed to do back in the day, but the questions were all based on something only an adult was supposed to know. So we'd go through writing down all the questions and writing down the answers that we tried, which ones are wrong. So you'd have to load up the game 4 or 5 times to where you could get enough right answers to get in and play the stupid game. But I spent a lot of time with these games, and there's even more that they came out with that I didn't have. Like I didn't have the Police Quest series, but it was not along the same line of the police and police force. But I spent a lot of time with these games over the years, and to hear about Monkey Island definitely wants me to go back and play those now, because I remember LucasArts coming out with that way back when, and I had one of their other shoot-offs, which was Full Throttle, which was kind of a biker themed point and click game.
Yeah, I played a little bit of that.
You can actually get that one for iOS.
Yeah, it's remastered. I think they've released it on a few platforms.
So-
I've played Space Quest and all of the Leisure Suit Larry series, but I intended to get to the rest of the Sierra games, but I burnt out after doing all of Larry and then that first Space Quest game. I definitely love the company. Those games that their general
the humor and everything, yeah.
Yeah, not so much the deaths, especially in Leisure Suit Larry 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I mean, 2, my God, it felt more like I was playing a survival horror game, because it's like everything you do. Like there were points was like, oh come on, seriously, this is how I die?
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah, 2 was tough. I don't remember, did the did the Monkey Island games have, like some of the books for the copy protection? You had to look through and find word 4 on page 8 in paragraph 2. Did they?
that stuff.
Those have that too?
Yeah, they had actually like a code wheel. Dial a pirate. Like you had to like turn the wheel a certain way and match up faces, and then it gave you a code you typed in. It was really complicated. They actually reprinted that for the limited run games anthology box.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Which I actually bought that because I'm like a huge Monkey Island nerd, and I don't usually buy the limited run collector's editions because they're so expensive. But like I got this, it has all the games and everything in there. Anyway, yeah, they had that sort of system similar to that, but you didn't have to answer questions. I know what you're talking about with Larry. I played the original version of Larry 1, and those questions, like there were some in there that were like region specific to California. It's like not even adults living in the rest of the U.S. would have got.
And that's again what I can remember, from I haven't touched. I guess I did get Larry for my iPad, the point and click version of 1, but I haven't completed it yet. So they still have some of those questions in there that you have to go through even to launch it there.
I played a little bit of Quest for Glory. I forget which one, but that has like more. That like has an actual battle system to it, doesn't it? Where you're battling monsters and whatnot.
Yep. They had the first one came out. We're talking old school here. EGA graphics, and they remastered to VGA graphics.
Ooh, 16 colors to 256. I'm actually going to talk about that myself.
Yeah. So, and that's where somewhere along that line is when they went from the text parser also to the point and click parser. I don't remember. I think when they remastered 1 is when they went to the point and click, because that was all about the same time they all did. Because King's Quest V was the first one for that. Space Quest 4 was the first one. I think Quest for Glory Remaster 1, and then I forgot which Larry started the point and click.
5.
Some way I was going to say 5 or... What? There was a number they skipped in there, too. I don't remember.
Yeah, they skipped 4.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Any real reason why? Was just the hell of it?
The guy, Al Lowe, who did the Larry series, he said he had a problem trying to figure out how to connect 3 to 4 because 3 had left off in a place that really wrapped things up. So he just decided to skip it and like sort of start 5 like in the middle of a story that he didn't really know how he got there.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
And then everybody called into Sierra saying, where do I buy Leisure Suit Larry 4, the case of the missing floppies? Like I can't find it anywhere.
Oh.
I forgot about that.
Awesome. That's hilarious. Oh, if you guys love these type of games, and if you liked watching Homestar Runner and the Strong Bad emails back in the early 2000s, they did a Sierra-style point-and-click adventure game called Peasant's Quest, and it was all about going after Trogdor, if you remember him. So it's absolutely hilarious if you want to check that out, if you were into those cartoons back in the day.
Nice.
Same style game.
Taking my notes now.
That's all. I need to check out Quest for Glory. I didn't realize it was more than just a point-and-click game.
I wonder. These are probably all on a GOG.
They are all GOG. Yes,
that's what I figured. Yep, that's the whole point of that game or that website.
Yeah,
I've got the original CDs for a lot of them if you want them.
Yeah, but see, those don't have those. You have to figure out the copy protection. You don't have the manuals, do you? Like for the copy protection anymore?
Yeah, they're on the internet. I've looked for a lot. Some of them. The ones that were.
I imagine those be easy to.
Yeah, the ones that were tough though is a lot of them had those stupid magic windows, so you couldn't photocopy them even. You had to have that red tinted cellophane to read the text underneath.
Yeah.
Is that stored with all your AOL disc and all that?
Those are coasters for my house.
I'm trying to think what game I played on GOG a couple years ago for a podcast, and it, like the copy protection, I didn't even realize it was asking me a copy protection question. So I was like, whatever, like just scrolled through it, typed in something, whatever. And it was some space game, and I left the port and pretty quickly got attacked by space pirates and absolutely destroyed. I'm like, I don't even understand what just happened.
Those damn space pirates get you every time.
Tried it a second time, and then I was like, okay, something's off. Then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, why did it ask me a different question? And
it's like the game dev simulator, where if you pirate it, the game's exactly the same, except like halfway through the game you lose and go bankrupt because of piracy affecting your game sales.
That's great.
Yeah.
But it took me a minute. I had to go in the GOG. I was like, oh, there is a help file that came with this, and it listed. It was like, hey, by the way, if you look on like page 2 of the manual included with this download, all those questions and answers are right there. I was like, oh yeah, kind of forgot games had that.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention about Quest for Glory 2 is if you play through the games in order, you can import your character from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, so you can continue along with the same character you created.
Oh, that's cool. That's what I liked about Baldur's Gate.
Yes.
The originals. Need to check those out. I need to check out Quest for Glory.
It looks like 1 for $5 is on GOG for $9.99.
Yeah, these games are like dirt cheap.
Oh
Yeah.
30 years later, pick them up for a song.
Hey, I'm just glad that the side quest got to 50 before I did.
We should also mention like how big a deal Sierra was as a company at the time. Like they were enormous at the time.
There's gonna be games I talk about that weren't made by them, but they published them anyway, and they had a hand in a lot of them.
Ken or Roberta Williams.
Yeah, I actually I've read his book, Ken Williams, where he talks about his time at the company. It's really, if you're into this specific genre, it's like a very interesting read to just. The audiobook is great too. But yeah, they were. I know this. We talked about this for a while, but they were a huge company, like the equivalent size of like EA is today, I would say, if not a little bigger, just because they dominated gaming at the PC gaming at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, they got my share.
All because of Woodus.
Yeah, right. I don't know about that, but
oh, where did I thought I had something like a stat somewhere for one of these games. Maybe I'm confusing it, where it compared like how big that company was to games now or something like that. And be like, I can't remember if it was about Sierra or not, but
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember it either, because it's like it really puts things into perspective.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I guess that'll have to remain a mystery. All right, someone who is not a mystery but is returning for first time in a while. Twinkie, how you doing?
Yo,
you want to talk your first game tonight?
Well, I would say probably my only game for the night because I don't have notes for anything else. So, but yeah, my game would be the just Doom. I mean, I really don't know what else to say about it. It's kind of like a game that defined a genre and was one of the big 2 games that inspired or got the SRB to form. So, the game was released in 1993 by John Romero and John Carmack. The development started shortly after Wolfenstein, and then after Wolfenstein 2 came out, they ended up forming a office. They started working in a different office, and they called it Suite 666. And during development, there was actually a lot of heated arguments during the development. And I know one guy, I think his last name is Hall, got fired from it. But eventually, the game came out. Inspired the FPS genre, and even to this day, you still have people speedrunning, modding it, making levels. I know there's a yearly level making competition, and it's still ongoing. So, I started my experience with it was actually I had a really cool uncle who I wasn't supposed to play the game because but I ended up playing it at his house, and I had to beg my parents nonstop to get me a copy of the game, though I had to settle with the Super Nintendo version, which is notoriously bad, but it is what it is. But it was kind of like one of the big games that kind of started getting me interested in PC gaming as a whole. I did play games like Quest for Glory and stuff beforehand, but I was too young to really, get those games. So I ended up I started with Doom essentially. So
started your PC gaming career.
Yep. I hopped on and off with PC gaming, but it wasn't until the orange boxes when I really got into it. But
I remember. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this also inspired a really crappy 2005 movie with The Rock.
oh yeah, there was actually a movie that came out in 2019 that's just as bad too.
Oh no, I forgot about that one. Oh,
yep.
I remember I didn't have this game, but one of my neighbor friends had a really nice computer. I think his parents, his dad worked in IT, so they'd always have like the latest and greatest computer and the latest and greatest computer games. And I remember watching him play this game and be like, oh my God, I don't think I should be watching this right now. It was intense for back in the day when it came out.
Very intense.
Yeah.
Like hearing some of the stories about the design during the design process of the game was weird because next door to the studio that they were developing the game they were actually working next to a dentist office, and so they would get like a lot of this weird sounds that were coming from the dentist office and would actually incorporate that into the sound design and crazy stuff like that.
Oh dang.
So
yeah. I know a dentist drill scares me, so
I mean, you're basically going to hell when you're going to visit the dentist sometimes, so it all makes sense.
Yeah.
I remember playing through Doom, but I got into which I don't know why they ever called it that. I got into the WADs where you could tweak the WADs, and I remember I reskinned I think the entire first 4 or 5 levels in Star Wars, because you could reskin per level, change each wall, change the monsters and all that stuff. And I remember having a lot of fun doing that, and then to give it to my buddies to play through it and see what they thought of it.
Oh yeah, there's like an entire rabbit hole that you can go down of like reskinned Doom games or versions of the Doom game, and like modified monsters and all sorts of crazy stuff. Like, you could spend hours just looking through all of that and all the crazy stuff that people came up with. Yeah, some of it's just hilarious.
Chex Quest. Yeah, that was my introduction to Doom. I got Chex Quest in a box of checks, and like, man, this game is really good, and it's basically just Doom for kids.
I forgot about that. Wasn't one of the first games that came out technically as like shareware? You got like the first 3 levels for free, and then had to pay for the rest of them or something like that.
For Doom, yeah, the first episode was.
Yeah.
The modding, like you said, Penny said, the modding community for it is great. Like there's, I got a split screen build of, I think it's GZ Doom, where you can run like any Doom mod or WAD into it. And I put Chex Quest in there and like played with my son a little bit on our TV. Split screen Chex Quest. Like, we are living in the future.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there was just some odd ones out there. I think there was one that was based off the TV sitcom Home Improvement. There's just really odd ones that you can find.
The best one is the Noah's Ark one that you can play on the Super Nintendo.
Oh, yeah. Is that Doom or is that Wolfenstein?
I think it might be more based on Wolfenstein, but either way, it was really funny because it's just you're Noah. Yeah. You're trying to put all the animals to sleep before the Ark takes off, so you're shooting pellets at them.
Even though there's like 100,000 goats in that ship for some reason.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the Ark, but the only thing you brought on were just like hundreds of thousands of goats.
All right. Any other Doom-related comments?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, then, Pendy, let's move to you.
Okay. So my first game tonight is going to be Joe Montana Football. This is a game that was published by Sega and came out for MS-DOS systems in 1990, and then later for the Sega Master System, Game Gear, and Genesis in 1991. So I ended up playing the PC DOS system of this game. My family's first computer was an IBM 286, but I think by the time we got this game, we had like a 386 or a 486 with a VGA graphics at the time. Mm-hmm. So that meant, as we were talking about before with VGA graphics, 256 glorious colors. Unlike our 286 that I believe was a 4-color CGA card. So that was a little rough. So Sega wanted this game out before Christmas of 1989, but that was not to be. And why this game is still in the 90s podcast. They contracted out this game to Activision, not knowing about the internal strife and layoffs going on there at the time. So Activision basically told them for 5 months, "Oh yeah, everything is great. It's going. We're doing it. It's good." And then, but it was revealed later at that time, after those 5 months, oh, actually, we kind of haven't really started the game at all, mostly. So sorry. So in a panic, Sega went to Electronic Arts, or EA, to see if they would actually replace Madden with Joe Montana and make that the game. So the first Madden football game for a console could have ended up being a Joe Montana game instead. EA, however, did not want to do this, and they agreed to make a separate game for them, which would be Joe Montana Football. So unlike Madden, that was more of an attempt at like a more realistic 3D type game, Joe Montana was more simplistic in all aspects of the game. It was side-scrolling, had less plays to choose from, and had more of a simple arcade-like offense that was emphasized by the passing game. No surprise, as the game was centered around the best quarterback in the league at the time, Joe Montana. So I remember really struggling with the running plays in this game. Passing was definitely where it was at, the way this game was set up. So EA got Madden out first. That was their higher priority. They told Sega, you can wait. And then Joe Montana Football ended up coming out in January. So it's funny, I was looking up on YouTube about this game. They even made a commercial where Joe Montana comes out and he explains why the game is taking so long to be developed. He says in the commercial, "Since I don't like to be rushed, we're taking extra time to perfect my game." Yeah, there you go. It will be ready by the Super Bowl. Someone got it. Bonus points if you got the football pun in there. So Joe Montana ended up signing a $1.7 million 5-year deal for this series. That would be about $4 million today with inflation. And the Sega executives in Japan, they were very wary of paying someone that much for their likeness and still being able to get a good return on their investment. But it paid off. It was games like this and Madden that are credited with giving Sega the edge on the console market share at the time and getting over Nintendo, who had before completely dominated the market. So let's see. They had a new game that came out every year until the 5-year deal ran out. And fun fact, after that deal ran out, they switched to a new football star, and that game was called Deion Sanders Primetime Football. Who's now on the news today as the coach of Colorado. So, I had a lot of fun with Joe Montana Football at the time. This was probably like a year or two before I really got into Tecmo Super Bowl, before that came out. And with Joe Montana Football, in that game, you could play an exhibition game, a full season. There was practice modes for running offensive plays or even field goals. In the games, you could modify a lot of stuff. You could make the 4 quarters 5, 10, or 15 minutes long. You could select the game speed to be like slow, medium, or fast. And the game also had a fun feature where you could run replays and then collect them for your own highlight reel that you could download to your computer. So that was cool. The teams were modeled after the 30 teams in the NFL at the time, but nothing was officially licensed. So it was just all city names, but no team names. So it was like New York or New York A or New York B or Philadelphia. And none of the other players were licensed either, except who? Yeah, you guessed it, Joe Montana. That was the only guy that was licensed in that game. So there was a lot of plays to choose from. There was 12 offensive plays, including a field goal or a punt, and then 9 defensive plays when you're on defense. Now, I don't know what the console versions were like at all, but in the PC version, you could edit everything. You could edit plays, team names, players, even the players' uniform colors. If you wanted to, you could edit the players' stats to all of the max values and just make them all Supermen. And as I was only around 10 years old at the time, I took full advantage of this. So I had people all maxed out for my team. I didn't care. So do you want all your players to be like 6'6", 320 pounds and 35 years old, which was the tallest, the heaviest, and the oldest you could make them in the game, in green and orange uniforms for a team called Oh Saquon Can You See? Yeah, you can do that. And besides perfecting the fake punt, something that I did often in that game, I had the most fun editing my team as a 10, 11-year-old. I would pick a couple of teams and come up with team names like Snoopy's Brawlers or the Dragon Warriors. I would name all the players after my friends, my family members, and fictional characters. So like, for example, my brother might be hiking the ball to my friend Dave, who would then pass the ball to Optimus Prime for a touchdown. You know, I loved being able to customize everything. And if you want to try this game, you can find it at a website called My Abandonware that supposedly has over 25K titles from 1977 to 2012 that you can download or play in your browser for free. And a nice thing about that website, too, is that when I was looking for the other games to see if you could play them for free, if you can't play them for free, they'll point you to the websites like Steam or GOG where you can actually pay for them and play them that way. So it's a nice little database of old computer games.
Nice. I haven't heard of that one, but...
Yeah, I'll have to check that out, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know when I was looking at my Commodore 64 titles for our last one, first games, like almost any of those, I would just Google it and almost instantly get brought to some page that you could just play it on.
Yeah, it's the Abandonware kind of puts everything together that you can pretty much find out there. And like I said, you can either download them and play them that way, or you can just play them in your browser. That's what I did a couple of nights ago. I had Joe Montana in my browser, and I started playing the game and checking it out again after not having played it for decades.
Nice. Alrighty, we'll go with the perfect transition from football to Cesar. Woohoo! Just 2,000 years before. I mean, that's not that big a jump. But my few games here I want to talk about it right at the beginning. They were all city building games, and they came out from a company called Impressions. They basically took SimCity and expanded upon the original right before SimCity 2000 came out, and they put them in historical times. So you're basically playing like SimCity Rome, and I'll get to it in a minute, SimCity Egypt, and then by the 2000s they had a Greek one and another one set in China before they collapsed, and that was about it for them. But they were put out by Impressions Games, published by Sierra, because, Sierra had to have its little fingers in a lot of stuff, and why not hook up with them to get your games out? But I never played the first one, and the first one came out earlier in the 90s, the first Cesar. But in 1998, I remember I was babysitting and house sitting for a family, and I was in college. And I was sitting over their house, and the mom's like, you can hang out at the house all weekend, eat whatever's in the fridge, feed the dogs, hang out with the dogs, go in the pool. She was even like, play on the computer or something. I'm like, golly, like, give me the run of your house. Why don't you? So one day I was like, I had a CD burner at college, and as we all did in the dorms, we'd always pass around games and copy games, and like, hey, you find a game store. I was like, I wonder what the games they got here. And she had one called Cesar 2. And I look at the back and I'm like, oh, it kind of looks like a SimCity-ish game. So I brought it back to my dorm, installed it, and played it for a week while they were gone. And I was house sitting, and I was like, oh, damn. Pretty quickly copied that CD and made sure to have my own copy. It was just really fun. I loved SimCity. I loved the original SimCity. Played the hell out of SimCity 2000. But this was like right in the middle of it, and it just seemed to be, I don't know, the historical angle of it was pretty cool. Like you're building the Parthenon and different stuff. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 that started getting you into building these huge different I'm trying to think of the name of it, basically old iconic buildings. Like you'd build the Colosseum, you could build the Parthenon. What's the guy that had his legs spread? The Colossus of that one city right above the port town, or maybe that was Greek. But you could build these ancient wonders of the world, basically. And you had to build different temples to different gods, and you could see your little people walking around along the streets. And if you built a market, you could see your little guy walking around, and you had to make sure your streets were not too confusing, because I want to say at the time there was no AI to this. Like a guy got to a corner and he would just make a decision and turn. So if you had too many crossroads, if you're trying to build it in a nice big old grid, like maybe you're doing with SimCity, your little guy would get lost all the time. Or you would build a firehouse and you'd watch the little fire guy come out if you zoomed in, and he'd go walking, and you could do map overlays that would show you the risk of fire in your town, and literally as he walked by, like buildings would turn green with that overlay, like, okay, you're good for a few months in game time, like this is not going to catch fire. But the more complicated you built your streets, the worse it was. And I want to say it wasn't until the next game, Cesar 3, which came out in like 99, you could start putting little barriers on your roads so that they wouldn't turn that way. So it'd be easy to build a whole residential block as a big loop, but obviously have it connected to other stuff. And then you could put these little like roadblocks at the end of them that stopped random movement from happening. But still, if like the military needed to get through or whatever, it would let people who had a reason to go through. But like your police, your fire department, your temple people, because you'd have to build temples to different gods, and they'd walk around, and you'd want to make sure that you were praying to the right gods, and different people had different things. I know if you went through the story mode, kind of, at least the challenges through. Different missions would have different gods available in there. So you didn't have to build to like 6 or 7 or 8 different gods at a time, but you better keep those 2 or 3 that were in that story mission happy, or you'd get destroyed. And I know you always had to have, I think it's plebs or plebes. In my mind, they were plebes. They were basically the working class. I don't know if they were necessarily slaves or not, but you had to have enough of those in the Cesar game, because if you're trying to build a building and there wasn't enough population, working population to do it, it'd be like more or plebes are needed. And oh my God, it would just say that over and over again, every 30 seconds or something, if you didn't have enough. And I still hear this time, and I was trying to look it up for which one it was. Like in my head, I still like hear more plebes needed. And then I Googled it and found plebes are needed. So who knows? Cesar 2, Cesar 3, they were very recent in my head, because I want to say not 6 months after that second one came out, and I played it to death in my dorm room. I saw the third one out, and I was like, oh, I got to get that immediately. So lots of city building there. And then late in 99, they came out with an Egyptian one that I thought the graphics like just were a huge step up. And oh my God, I loved building the pyramids in them. It was called Pharaoh. And in game time, like the pyramids took hundreds of years or more than the lifetime of the Pharaoh to build, and in game time it would just take forever. Like, and for me, I loved it. I was like, oh, I'll just keep playing. Like, yes, make this scenario take 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I would love to keep doing that. And it, much like I'm sure in Egypt, you had to devote so much of your city to building those kind of things. You'd have to have stone workers, and you'd have to have carpenters that would build the ramps to get the stones up. And I mean, it was just, you had to have stone masons. You had to have, there was even another one for the limestone, like chiselers or something like that, to make sure at the end you could even watch the whole pyramid being made. They'd cover it in limestone, and then it would still take another like 2 years, and you'd watch these little guys going all the way up to the top, walking around, and then chisel it into the perfect pyramid shape instead of a blocky pyramid. And as you played through the scenarios, you'd play through different historic times. Like the first scenario, you'd be building like these mud brick pyramids, and then you get to the end and suddenly you're building like pyramids and pyramid complexes and everything. And I even remember early 2000s, they came out with an update for Pharaoh. There was a second one called the Cleopatra expansion. And in there, it offered a way for the gods to bless you and like build 10 or 20 or 30% of the pyramids at a time. And I was always like, oh no, that's like half the fun. Turn that shit off. I want to take like another hour to build this. I want to sit and watch my little people do really well. I want to see my optimal city do great. But yeah, those impression city building games, from 98 probably through like 2003, 4 or 5, I'd play the hell out of them on my PC. And you guys play any of these ones?
You just like, one of my childhood memories was Whiplash. I actually did play Pharaoh.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely loved it, because I first played it early 2000. That's also when I discovered Roller Coaster Tycoon, and I played the hell out of both of those games at the time. Absolutely loved it.
Nice. Yeah, I want to say out of all of them, Pharaoh was the one I would keep going back to.
I actually was just looking this up while you're talking about it. Apparently there was a remake or reboot of sorts for Pharaoh that came out earlier this year too.
What?
Yeah.
Oh God, I'll be Googling that when when Yangus is talking next. That's cool. But yeah, I mean, it was SimCity, but historical times. And just like, I mean, I back then, it was always, like, as a kid growing up, I loved reading the Greek gods, the Roman gods, the pharaohs and Osiris and all that stuff. They picked some really iconic ones. It ended with a Chinese one, which I thought felt a little flat. And by that time, it was like, oh my God, here we are in our fourth thing. It's just the same thing over and over again. You know, the fire department looks a little different. It was just reskinned and reskinned and reskinned. And I thought they kind of peaked with Pharaoh, and the Zeus one was okay. And then, yeah, it petered out in the early 2000s. But it was a great series of games. And I know something that you mentioned, Twinkie, we're going to hear about a Tycoon game soon. Maybe not next, but who we are going to hear from next is Yangus.
What's up?
I like how the beard started talking before he did.
Look, you could at least take my beard out for a date first without talking about it all the time, man. Yes. Come on, man.
All right, what do you got up for us first?
All right. First game that I'm going to talk about, actually just going to do a little bit of an overview of Humongous Entertainment. Then we'll get on to the meat and potatoes of it. Ooh. So, Humongous Entertainment, they were founded in 1992. Humongous Entertainment are the creators of various games for audiences of all ages on PC platforms. They specialize in point-and-click adventure games, educational software, and activity center collections. Franchises owned and created by the company include ones such as Putt Putt, Freddie Fish, Spy Fox, Pajama Sam, Big Thinkers, the Explore series, and Fatty Bear. The company used hand-drawn animation in nearly all of their work, giving their games a bright and fun cartoon world vibe with every series and entry. In later releases, they would employ professional voice actors and real musicians to create music for their games and help give it more of a, realistic sort of feel rather than using MIDI and synth for everything. The company, unfortunately, did face some rocky times after the 90s ended. Long story short, they were bought out by Atari at one point. They put out some new games, but the quality really dipped with those ones. But in recent years, the company has reformed and re-released a number of their titles on modern hardware for nostalgic fans and new generations. Now, there's plenty to talk about with all these different series, but I want to focus on my personal favorite of the Humongous Entertainment series, and that's Pajama Sam. Pajama Sam is one of the flagship series from Humongous Entertainment, having 3 main installments and a few Activity Center spin-offs before the whole Atari buyout thing that I talked about. Real quick, the original 3 games are called No Need to Hide, or Pajama Sam in No Need to Hide When It's Dark Outside, Pajama Sam 2, Thunder and Lightning Aren't So Frightening, and Pajama Sam 3, You Are What You Eat From Your Head to Your Feet. The game stars a young boy named Sam, whose imagination helps create the worlds that he travels to, from the land of darkness, worldwide weather, and the food country in each of the respective games. He encounters a collection of characters who either help or hinder him. Sometimes you have a few returning characters in each game. Sometimes you'll just be want it done. But with Sam's can-do attitude and love for superheroes, particularly his idol and his favorite comic book character, Pajama Man, he tackles all the challenges and mysteries that the worlds throw at him and that he encounters until he saves the day, or he overcomes whatever obstacle gets in his path. Pajama Sam games are point-and-click adventures with each playthrough changing up the puzzles, solutions, and even certain areas you can enter. So every experience with the game will be pretty different from your last playthrough. Each game, like I said a little bit ago, takes place in a new land, such as in the second game that takes place in worldwide weather, which is located high above the clouds in the sky. It's composed of some different themed locations, all of them being based around different types of weather, with these massive machines, helping create some of them. For instance, you have the snow, where you go to see like the winter / snow, which has the snowflake inspectors to make sure that every single one is unique before it heads down to fall on the earth. Or you have the little greenhouse you can go to where you can see where they grow things like rainbows and tornadoes. You will also find some various items to help Sam on his adventures, with each adventure requiring Sam to find 3 or 4 special items, or in the case of the later games, special NPCs to help beat the game and get things working right back in order. Sam himself was voiced by Pamela Adlon. I probably did not say the last name correctly, but she is most well known for voicing characters such as Bobby Hill from King of the Hill and Spinelli from Recess. Other Humongous Entertainment alumni helped voice the various side characters throughout the series. One that stands out to me in particular is, I unfortunately do not know the actress's name, but the person who voiced Freddie Fish appears in the third Pajama Sam game as the Onion Librarian in the big library in the food pyramid. So that was kind of a fun thing, even as a kid, to catch that and be like, "Oh, that's Freddie Fish's voice." Anyway, Pamela Adlon helped bring a lot of personality to Sam as he interacts with the world and characters around him. Sometimes he's a little snarky, sometimes he's sweet. Sam is a wonderful, well-rounded protagonist. He's willing to hear out everyone and do whatever he can to help, never being afraid to go out of his comfort zone despite his own fears. And the funny thing is, said fears are what lead to most of his adventures. And along with the way he said fears are what lead to most of his adventures in the first place. And along the way, he realizes there's really nothing to be too scared of when it comes to, say, the dark or thunder and lightning. Funny enough, in both of those first two games, he actually meets characters that are sort of the personifications of darkness / thunder and lightning, and he finds out that, like, they're not that scary. They're just kind of like regular people. There's really nothing to be too afraid of. So it's kind of cool to see that as these games go on too, that Sam's especially like in the third game, that there's a little bit of growth with Sam, that he starts to not be like, so like, oh my gosh, gotta be scared of this or anything. Anyway, these games have personally stuck with me the most of Humongous Entertainment's library, just due to the creativity of them. I really love the characters and the worlds from each of the games. They've really stuck with me thanks to a lot of the fun designs that you come across. There's a really good cartoon style to the games, and just a unique look for each of the various worlds. Just a lot of cool angles for how some of the buildings and locations are and landmarks are in the distance when you're just looking at the maps, and just some cool little details when you're in certain locations. Like a lot of good color work as well, especially in the first game. Uses a lot of like dark blues and purples and stuff to really help bring the Land of Darkness to life without making it, seem like, it's scary. It's got a really nice blend. Unfortunately, not the best at explaining colors and art stuff like that, but all the games have a really nice look to them, and they really kind of stick out to you with how the artists, create all these backgrounds and characters. Music is top notch in the games as well. Really love how, especially when you get to like the third game, that they got a jazz band to perform a lot of the music that you hear as you travel out throughout different parts of the game, especially when you get down to like, I think it's the Muscle Beach area, where there's some really great jazz songs that'll kick in once you get the carnival rolling down there on the boardwalk that's in that part of the stage, or that part of the game, excuse me. And I just also really liked how each time you played one of the games too, that the puzzles would change as well. That was kind of a nice little thing too. So that way every playthrough was just a little bit different. But yeah, really just enjoyed how there's how presentation was handled, and along with just the easy to learn and understand gameplay and side activities. Wasn't the best at the main gameplay, but some of the problem solving as a kid. But looking back now, it's like, there's some good solutions in there that even could throw you off a little bit, even if you're an older kid playing. But as an adult looking back on this series now, though, I found that I love the games from a different perspective. Yeah, thanks to the writing and a lot of the animation / production aspects. The writing can actually be really funny in these games, as there were a lot of jokes that went way over my head as a kid playing these. Second game in particular, there's a phone that you can use in the lobby of Worldwide Weather where you can call different departments by pushing different numbers. And sometimes the responses they give you, listening to them now, it's just like, okay, a kid definitely wouldn't understand, because Sam is like, what are you talking about? And I thought the same thing. I'm like, man, no wonder I didn't get that joke as a kid. Totally went right over my head. So I like that the devs purposely did that too, so there'd be some humor in there for the kids and adults, kind of like with like Disney movies and some other animated films that have come out throughout the years. Let's see. I also really like how the world design is across all of these games. Particularly, I like how the third game's world it looks a lot like the human body when it shows you like a full map of it, with areas such as the foothills actually looking like huge feet off in the distance, with little toes and toenails in particular when you see the hills way off in the distance. It's a funny little detail. Also really liked how each of the games kind of take place at a different time of the day, / how there's the color use tied into all that. First game, for instance, takes place in the middle of the night when Sam was trying to sleep. Second game takes place in the morning hours, starting with a gloomy, rainy day in the real world, while the worldwide weather area that Sam eventually climbs up to is bright and sunny with a big blue sky, since he's high above the clouds. And the third game is a really cool twist on not being more in the evening hours, because, long story short, the way that Sam ends up in the food country is that he ends up going through his pantry, the kitchen pantry, and it's the evening hours because his mom's getting dinner prepared for him. Well, you then see throughout the entire land that it's starting to be in the evening hours, and then when you think about it, it's like, oh, it's the sun peeking through the pantry door, like underneath. So that's what's causing it to look like it's sunset. That's actually a cool little detail when you think about it and how all these worlds are created kind of through Sam's imagination. Really, it's stuff like that I've found that has really made me appreciate these games more as an adult too, like looking back and just realizing like there's all these cool little details that I never would have noticed, as a kid, because just, focusing on the main task at hand. But yeah, a lot of these details really helped me appreciate them now. And from a new perspective, it's awesome too that there are new generations that are able to experience these titles, because you can play them on Switch, you can play them on Steam, you can play them on PS4, I believe. I think they've gotten quite a few of their games out and available for people to experience now. But if anybody who is either a nostalgic fan or a new person trying to get into these games, I would definitely recommend starting out with the Pajama Sam games. These are fun. They're just good adventure games, and even though if you're 30-year-old adult like I am, playing them, probably not going to be too challenging as an adult. But it's just the creativity that I find is what stands out to me the most about these ones, because it's just they just have fun worlds and characters to experience. I know Aust has also played a lot of Humongous Entertainment games, but have any of you guys any experiences with Pajama Sam or any of Humongous Entertainment's other stuff?
So it's just us?
I played some Freddie Fish.
There you go. Freddie Fish is good too.
They had 2 or 3 different ones. I want to say it was the summer of '98. I was back in town, and my mom was a preschool teacher for a long time and would work the preschool summer camps. And she would, I want to say I just would work like half days. It was summer. I didn't want to do much between being back from college, but I do remember I was there almost every afternoon during nap time, and to keep myself with all the lights on and all the kids sleeping, or at least, the ones that weren't having to get up to go to the bathroom, to keep myself awake, I was like, oh my God, I got to do something in the afternoon. Like, I just can't sit here. I'd bring a book, but then, you're sitting in a dark room reading a book and you're kind of nodding off. So I started fooling around the computer, and I'm like, oh, what are these Freddie Fish games? So I had to play them on very low volume, but hey, don't have everything in. So, but I played some Freddie Fish in the day. They were fun.
I played all of these games, and I loved them all. Played quite a bit of Freddie Fish. Putt Putt was what I first got into. That was probably my favorite. But yes, Yangus, you talked about Pajama Sam 2.
Yeah.
I had so much hype for that game when it was first announced. That's the first game I can ever remember waiting for to come out. I don't remember what year it was, but man, that whole summer, that's all I could think about. For some reason, I don't know, I just really love the idea of like going up into the sky and there being a factory that makes weather.
Oh, yeah.
Humongous Entertainment had a contest for, I think it was Pajama Sam 2, where you could draw a comic or fan art. I think it was specifically a comic, though, about Sam and I can't remember the hero's name, the superhero that he read,
Pajama Man.
Yeah. And there was like I don't know how many kids entered, but like I won, me and 3 other people won, and like my art was on their website.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I've gone to the Wayback Machine like 100 times trying to find it. It's long gone, unfortunately, and we didn't save it. But and like I won like a free game. I got to pick out which game I wanted.
Cool.
But yeah, I loved all of these games so much, and you pretty much summed up my feelings as just like the imagination and the colorful characters. They were present in all Humongous games. Pretty much your entire statement on Pajama Sam applies to the whole franchise, in my opinion, or the whole company's games. Spy Fox was another one of my favorites.
You know what? Those are the only ones that I have really never played.
Yeah.
But those are the ones I never owned as a kid, and I'd love to go back and play them now, though, because I've heard plenty of people say that, oh, if you enjoyed these other ones, that you definitely would like playing the Spy Fox ones. The only real experience I had with Spy Fox was, I think it was a demo that was included on one of the games, where it was like you got to play for like the first area or so, and then once you got to like the boat, it was like, hey, thanks for playing the demo. If you want to play the full game, go to your local retailer or whatever.
Yeah. That was sounds like it was the first one. That series was probably my second favorite. And I don't think the first Pajama Sam, I played it, and I don't think I just didn't gel with me as much as all the other Humongous games. Like, I didn't dislike it. It's just like it wasn't until the second one that I really got into Pajama Sam specifically.
Yeah, the second one is my personal favorite of the games, but it's funny going back to watching the stuff with the first one. Sam actually has some pretty funny, snarky comments. Do you remember Otto the boat that's in the first one?
Yeah.
He's like afraid of going into the water. What is it? He's like, yeah, my friend Dave, he said that boats don't float if you're made of wood. And Sam just looks at him with just half closed eyes and just like, really?
Yeah.
His snark was so funny in that first game. I never noticed that before.
I remember some of that humor. That was pretty great.
There's a oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's, just to bring up Otto one more time, depending on if you can access the geyser area on the river you can get to, you can actually go and you can have Otto go through like a full 5-minute speech on geysers, and he starts telling a story. And the best part is that as he's going on, Sam is not only falling asleep, but on the bottom of the screen, there's just a brief flashing sometimes of gratuitous learning section.
Yeah.
I found out about that. I'm dying laughing. I watched the whole thing. Sam just kind of then just wakes up at the end. It's like, hey, Sam, were you listening? Oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah, I played these games on repeat so much. I think for at least several of the titles, I experienced every different variation in the puzzles because, like you said, it was somewhat random every time. Like it wasn't an infinite number of differences. It was a very specific set of patterns that you could have, but it did create a lot of newness or novelty, really, especially if you just got in the game.
It was fun. Because I would replay him every few years or so, or every other year, something like that. And it was always cool, how different the gameplay, how different the series of events would play out.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have access to an entirely different area, or you have an entirely different. I know this again, bringing back the second game. I had never really experienced the little. I forget what he's called. It was the little yellow remote control guy that helps you find the snowflake inspector. There was only once, from all the years that I've played that game, there's only been 1 or 2 times that I've actually ever encountered that guy and needed to help him to help me find the snowflake inspector.
Yeah, there are some that are kind of rare that you don't come across very often.
Yeah, because when he popped up, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen you before. And it's funny, too, because that guy, the little yellow remote control guy, he's front and center on the box art. So, right behind Sam.
One thing you didn't really mention, which you probably didn't know, Humongous Entertainment was actually founded by Ron Gilbert, creator of Monkey Island, after he left LucasArts.
Oh, okay. That's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I was doing a little bit of looking up, but I just did brief looking up earlier, and it just said they were founded in 1992, but it didn't mention names. But that's pretty cool, though. That's awesome.
Yeah, they definitely, they're like babies point and click adventure games, pretty much. All of these are.
I can appreciate, though, that they made them they didn't make it so you could completely get stuck or anything.
Yeah, they're not hard at all, but they're enjoyable. They're creative and imaginative.
Yeah, and you know what? They're just the right difficulty too for the intended age group, because I remember playing these about that time. I was I don't know, 6 or 7 or so, and there were times where there'd be stuff where it's I'm not really sure what I need to do, but then after saving my game and coming back to it later, then it would be oh, okay, now I get it. You know, you get that moment of realization. So, you know, like I said when I was talking earlier, like as an adult, you know, a lot of the stuff's not going to be too complicated. But it's kind of cool though when you look at the puzzles and see like, you know, why it could stump a kid or be like, oh, okay, so you know, this is how they intended it to work. You know, you get that different perspective, especially if you grew up playing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looks like almost all of these are on Steam. I know several of them are on mobile devices. Looks like only Pajama Sam is on GOG.
I will say one more joke that has made me laugh as an adult that I never really got as a kid, and hopefully you guys will also appreciate this one too. With it being kind of a punny thing, made me think of Dragon Quest when I came across it. There's a moment in the second game where you have to use a phone to call in to make an appointment with someone called George Someone. That's literally the character's name. But as you are standing in the lobby waiting to go into this, down this hallway where all these rooms are at to go talk to this guy, there's a little bowl of peanuts that are sitting on the table there in the lobby. Well, you can click on them because in these games you can click on all sorts of various objects to do, you know, different funny little things. Well, if you click on this bowl of peanuts, Sam will go over and try and grab one of them, and all of a sudden the bowl will start moving, and you hear a little voice go, "Oh, you're looking particularly nice today." And he's like, "Well, thank you." The receptionist goes, "Oh, don't mind them. They're complimentary nuts."
Yeah.
And every single time you click on them, they give Sam a different comment, like a positive comment, like, "Oh, your hair is looking very blue today," or or "We love that cape. It's great." And just the complimentary nuts thing, it's like, oh my god, how did I not get that as a kid? That like, it's a pun joke. That's funny. But yeah, all these games are great. Particularly, I love Pajama Sam, but you can't go wrong with just about anything from Humongous Entertainment.
I'm not sure if this was brought up, but there is a collection on the Switch for them for some of the games.
Oh yeah, that was recently released. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think that was Limited Run or something that did that. I could be mistaken, but that's cool though that they've been bringing out these games to all these different bits of hardware and modern consoles and stuff for people to play them again or to play them for the first time. You know.
Nice. All right. Well, Ost, you've been talking here. Why don't you continue on with your second game as we make our second pass through our guest tonight?
Okay, forgot about that. Okay, been talking about so many people's other games. Yeah. So my next game is Myst, which is also kind of a point and click adventure game. Although it's the focus is placed much more on the puzzle solving aspect. So it was to summarize it, I guess. You're not given a whole lot of backstory at the start, other than you mysteriously end up on an island, which seemingly has nobody living on it, though it does have signs of life. There's several buildings. There's a lot of like really weird, almost steampunk like structures on the island. Like there's a giant rocket ship. There's several like giant gears. There's a library and it was like a astronomy center, like a little observatory dome.
Yeah.
I'm trying to paint a picture.
Trying to think what the name of that is.
Yeah, I'm trying to paint a picture of like just how unusual the island looks when you first appear there. But the main gist of, I guess, the universe is that there are books that certain people can write that allow you to travel to other worlds, which the game refers to as ages. And you use these books specifically in the game to travel to different worlds to solve puzzles, which slowly reveal the story and backstory of the island. And to not spoil too much of it, you have to go around collecting pages to restore one of two books to rescue someone. I don't really want to give too much of it away, but it's so, I can't think of the word. I want to say mysterious sounds obvious. It's just so unusual. The atmosphere of this game is so unusual compared to pretty much any other game at the time. I think that's what my dad liked about it so much, which is my primary influence where I first discovered the game. It was so popular when it came out that it almost single-handedly drove CD-ROM drive sales, which at the time had not been widely accepted yet. Because, gosh, when did this game come out? I forget. 1993. Yeah. So we were still, a lot of people were still on floppy drives at the time. And it was the best-selling PC game until The Sims took that title away from it, like in 2000 or 1999. Yeah, the gameplay consists, like I said, it's a point-and-click adventure where you go from screen to screen. It's not a 3D generated environment. At least the original version wasn't. It was basically just a bunch of pictures with sound effects. There were some things you would click on that would have small animations, but really those were just small videos laid over the photos. Like I said, the whole game is pretty much just a string of photos, which at the time, to people playing games, then the quality that these pictures could provide was mind-blowing compared to like real-time rendered graphics that you would see in a PC game. You just couldn't create that kind of thing real time. The puzzles are, at least in my opinion, or child me's opinion, were very difficult.
Okay.
Yes, they were. College me had a hard time.
Oh yeah, same here. And without the internet to look stuff up.
Yeah. That was for real. I can't remember if they had a chat hotline or not, or like a phone you could call for hints phone line. I know a lot of games did at the time. I know my dad was going crazy trying to do some of it, and I was just a kid, so I just picked up his little book that he had written all his notes in and tried to do the puzzles that way because I couldn't figure it out on my own. I'm not really going to talk about any of the sequels because I haven't played those that much. I played around with Riven, which was the second game, which is even larger than the first one. But for the most part, the fans say that they're all consistent. That the series never really dipped. I just think it didn't have the lightning in the bottle effect that the first one did. That really just came along at the right time for the visuals to be mind-blowing to PC gamers at the time. The other games, couldn't quite capture that amount of popularity, but they were still pretty good games, and they sold decently well, I believe.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think I played Myst all of 2 days. There was one time you talk about you didn't have internet help. I did. By the time I got around to it later, talking about passing CDs around the college dorm. My girlfriend and I tried this one night and just sat there for 3, 4, 5 hours trying to get through it, and finally pulled up a help thing on the internet, dialed in with my AOL, and found some help for it. And I don't know if we beat it. We got pretty close. But it that was enough to spur me. The next time I went to a bookstore, I found they had Myst books, and holy crap, I think there were 3 books. There might have been a collected tale something too, but I loved those books. I loved the lore. I want to say it was it was all about a single family almost, and what they did with writing these books, and how, I mean, at least in the Myst books, the books linked to parallel universes or whatever they wrote was where they went. If they wrote a entire book detailing a society and a city and a whatever, they could travel to that city, to that society, and it kind of it didn't touch much on it, but it became part of the, are these books really linking to real places, or are they being created, or is it just, there's an infinite amount of variety in the worlds out there, and this is just linking to, we're writing about one we don't even know it about, but there's an infinite amount of worlds out there, and we're going to it. It was just so cool, the books that they wrote into this, because obviously they had hundreds of pages more lore than you'd get from this point and click.
Yeah, are the books well written? Are they?
I found them to be, yeah.
I've always wanted.
That was late '90s me.
Yeah, I've always wanted to read them. I've read up on the lore a lot online, and it is very interesting. It's I think what it is, it's so unique. There's not a lot of unique world building universes out there. A lot of it is just generic sci-fi or generic fantasy. This is just so different, and you still don't see a lot of stuff like the like this universe now. It's just it's always been like a thing in the back of my head, even though I didn't really complete it as a kid. I finished it later as an adult. And I didn't, dive into the sequels that much, but it's always been like this game that's like just existed in the back of my consciousness. That's, to me has always been this influential thing that's I've seen change gaming. It's this pillar of gaming. And
completely. Yeah.
I don't know that. I'm not sure if a lot of other people see it that way, because I'm sure there's people who probably haven't even heard of it. But to me, it's always been that way.
Oh yeah, Myst was huge from what I remember. I remember because it says it came out in September of '93. That was my first year of college. I remember driving to the local EB Games or KB Toys or whatever was still in the local mall to pick this up. And my dorm was always kind of where everybody hung out because we were kind of central to campus. So when people come over, we'd boot this up and see if we could get, a couple more areas further in the game. And I honestly don't remember if we ever beat it completely either, but it was fun and frustrating at the same time.
Here, I'll make you feel old. I was 4 when the game came out.
Oh, I know I'm old. So
I was born the year this game came out. What did it come out? September?
Yeah,
you said September '93.
Yangus came out of the mist.
But
was it September '93 when this one came out? You said, Woodus?
That's what Wikipedia says.
Yep.
Oh my God! Yeah, I would have only been a month old at that point. I make you all feel old.
It feels
I'm
like
hanging
this,
up now.
There's a remake of this on the Switch. There's an even newer remake of this on PC for VR or just regular, non-VR gaming. But the remakes are like 3D rendered versions. They're not the picture slideshow that you see in the original version.
Well, now here's a question: did you guys know that there's a parody version of this?
Yes, I was going to mention it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So don't say what it is yet, Ost. But do any of you other guys know about the parody version?
I only really know about the parody version.
Oh no! Oh no!
Isn't it one letter different?
Yeah, it's called Pissed.
Yeah.
And it stars John Goodman.
Yeah, it has John Goodman in it, of all people. It's so weird.
It has its own little theme song.
I don't remember that much of it. I remember my mom picking up Pissed from Walmart. It's like supposedly set after the island is so popular that I had all these tourists, and there's just like garbage and beer bottles laying around, and
it's just totally poking fun and making fun of the game. And it's like the devs being like, oh well, this game was so popular, but it was so difficult, how could it be popular? But
right. I don't remember that much.
Yeah, well, you basically covered it. Like exactly what Oz said is pretty much what the game is. It's just a big it's supposed to kind of reflect how popular the game was when like all these quote tourists came in and they trashed the place and everything, and how John Goodman is supposedly the king of the island now, and he's just like, well, welcome he's just totally hamming it up. It's great.
Yeah,
it's not worth actually playing, but it's funny just to watch the few clips of him in it because he's just so dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad somebody else or that other people knew about that too, because I was afraid I was going to throw that out there and I was going to be like, what?
I'm actually surprised that all of you have heard of the parody.
It was one of those things that I just kind of randomly found out about in college, and I was like, there's a Myst parody? What? So I got looking into it, and I found a video of a guy on YouTube like showing it off, and I'm like, oh my God, this is real. I thought it was just a joke at first. Sorry, Twinkie, what were you going to say? I cut you off there.
Oh, nothing. It's just I played it too.
You actually played it? Oh,
yeah, I have actually played it.
Oh my gosh. You brave soul.
Yeah, unfortunately, my experience with Myst is pretty poor. I had a friend that spoiled pretty much the entire thing for me. This was when I was looking into the series back in the mid-2000s. Then I tried out Pissed, and yeah. Honestly, it's not worth it, but if you can watch like the YouTube clips and stuff, then yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. But actually playing it, no. It's terrible.
Yeah, no. Just look for John Goodman and watch his stuff. He's pretty funny in that because he's just hamming it up. It's hilarious.
I think he's like, I remember him hanging out in the bathtub and stuff and just making jokes. And
he's like in a jacuzzi. He's got a little crown on his head.
I want to know the conversation, like with his agent or with like, how did he get involved in that?
That's what I
project?
want to know. Because this would have been around the time that he was probably doing Roseanne, so he would have been doing okay, like career-wise, because Roseanne went on for years.
Release was 96.
Yeah, so only just a few years after, and Roseanne that was still big in the 90s, wasn't it? Wasn't that a 90s show?
Late 80s, early 90s, maybe.
Okay, so maybe it's a little after that show was wrapping up. But either way, though, yeah, I'm curious about that too, Aust. How did he get involved? Maybe he owed somebody a favor, and that's why he did it.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I was going to say they ported Myst, not the parody, just the original. They ported Myst to the DS, and I wanted to pick it up, but then I read the reviews, and it's like they didn't. I think the 3DS version fixed this, but the original DS version, they didn't magnify the text. So, like when you're reading the books, you can't read anything. So how are you supposed to figure out the puzzles?
Oh,
Oof.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, there's like 100 different remakes on all the platforms. There's a physical version out on Switch as well as on the eShop if you wanted to look into that, or get the PC version, the newest one that looks amazing.
Does it still does it do the 3D transitions in the remake that you're talking about just now on Steam, or does it still try and do like the slideshow kind of aspect just to stay true to the original? It's
3D. It's a 3D rendered in the Unreal Engine. Came out in 2021. I don't know if it has. Like, I feel like they should release a version that also includes the original photos, because that's, you can remake it in an engine, but that's not the original images, which were just like still photos.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to. They can make it look amazing with new graphics, but it's not the original feeling, I don't think.
Yep. There maybe too. I know some remakes of games try and add an option for like, oh, here's a way you can semi-experience the original aspect. So
like the Secret of Monkey Island, the special editions for 1 and 2, you can just switch to straight up to old graphics if you want to.
Okay, well. But yeah, I have not played Myst myself. I know plenty about it. I want to try and play it myself at some point because I really don't know much of like the puzzles or anything like that. I know it was a very influential game, but yeah, it definitely sounds like everybody's had, well, other than Twinkie because you played Pissed, but most everybody else had pretty good experiences one way or another with it.
I think people's problems with the puzzles is that the solutions to them are often not in the place where you do the puzzle. You have to
that kind of style, huh?
Yeah, you have to read things in the game in different locations and then make a note of it and figure it out.
Okay.
Lots of back and forth.
Yeah, which is okay. It's a small island, but
yeah. If you were dumb like me and didn't take any notes.
You just don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, Woodus is saying he missed some clues.
Which made me pissed.
Which made him pissed. Oh, there we go. It all comes full circle.
I'm glad we all made the joke.
You guys didn't miss out on doing that one. Oh, man. All right. So, yeah, I mean, a very iconic game. And, I didn't interact with it much. I just remember like playing it for 5 or 6 hours at a time once. But holy crap, I
think that's the average experience. I didn't interact with it much, but I spent 5 or 6 hours with it.
I remember that one night, like, hey, man, it's 8:00. Oh, my God, it's 2 a.m. We need to go to bed. I don't know if we're going to beat this tonight, even with the help of the dial-up internet. So, all right, who are we back to? We are back to Woodus. What do you want to talk about next?
I was going to talk next about Railroad Tycoon, which the two that came out in the 90s were the first and the second one, which I grew up having a train set as kids, so this fascinated me to no end that I could build railroads on my computer. The first version was completely top-down, tile-based, kind of the way the original SimCity was. And then the second one had diametric view, not quite isometric. It was kind of more off-skewed. But the whole point was you'd give a section of history back in the old coal day of locomotives. You'd have to build routes, make money, transport cargo, mail, people, try and build up your empire. You could buy stocks in other companies, try and run them into the ground, take over their companies. You could daisy chain what your resources were, like say if you needed, you could bring grain from a farm to a mill, turn it into bread, or bring the grain to another farm to feed the cattle, and then take the cattle and turn them into hamburger and stuff like that, or gather steel to make automobiles and just keep building your empire. They pretty much ran through, all the way from the earliest of locomotives up until stuff that was not even developed yet when they made the game. So they were getting into high end electric trains and stuff like that. But you could cover most of the U.S. on a certain scenario or not. You could do Eastern Seaboard, Western. Had a lot of fun with that. You could build tracks, stations, like I said, trains. You could actually buy industries in a town if you needed to make a bakery in a town because you had grain nearby. I just remember the one thing I could never figure out, and I've even bought some of the newer games like Empire that's out now, Railroad Empire, and I still for the life of me cannot figure out how to do the stupid switching. So I always built double track so I didn't have to screw with the switches. I just double track everything, spent a lot more money that way, but it just made it easier. I didn't have to worry about trains stopping because they couldn't get through and figure all that out. But there was a third version that came out later in the 90s, and I had all three of them. We played a lot of them. Had a lot of fun with it. Pretty simple game, but you could do a lot with it, and that's really all I've got to say. Anybody else play any of these?
I was going to say maybe it like Pendy talk, but then Yangus, we might want to have you go right into the next Tycoon after this.
Yeah. All I was going to say is I did not choose this game. I'm sorry.
Oh, zing!
Now we're pun heavy.
So is this where you had the train first? Is this why Ticket to Ride is a big thing in your family?
Probably. Yeah. I've still got my box of HO trains in my closet over here that I'd never get out. But yeah, I always had a fascination with, call me Sheldon, I guess, off Big Bang Theory, and I always had a fascination with trains. But my buddy had the original game, the old like top down, like I said, and played a lot of that. And when the second one came out, I just had to get it.
Hey, I'm right there with you. Woodus, I never played these games, but I've always loved trains, so these sound like something that I would probably enjoy if I ever played them.
Since you put I'm assuming these are made by the same company with the name that I'm seeing.
The original one was developed by Sid Meier, Microprose back in the day, and then it was picked up by Pop Top Software after that. So it's not related to the other Tycoon series that's coming up.
Oh no! Oh, okay.
Gathering of Developers was the who published it later on. God Games, I think, is what their logo said.
All right, no problem. Well, even though they're not related, then we have moving vehicles on rails and the name Tycoon. So Yangus, might as well just pop you in here for this.
Mm-hmm. We will go ahead and get our tickets. We'll get our cotton candy. We'll get all the good stuff we're going to need because boys, we're heading to Roller Coaster Tycoon. Kind of pushing it with this game, but it was released in 1999, so it does technically qualify.
December 30th, when?
Yep. But yeah, so I'm going to talk about the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. It was released in 1999. I didn't get the exact date, but it was created by a man named Chris Sawyer. Inspired by other sim-style games and some of his previous work, Roller Coaster Tycoon was all about building your very own theme parks across various locations, based on real-world and fictional places across the globe. Each park has a different goal to them, such as having 300 guests at the end of year 1, or having a park rating of 500 by the end of year 3, and so on and so forth. Other parks may have stipulations to help challenge the players, such as not being able to remove any trees and plants on one map, or you start with a very small location, but you can purchase land across the highway, so you have to decide when you want to build a new attraction in your park, or when you want to try and buy some more land. And speaking of building, there's a lot to build in this game. You have various styles of roller coasters, wooden roller coasters, steel roller coasters, and all that good stuff. You have easygoing rides like merry-go-rounds and hedge mazes. There's thrill rides such as swinging ships and go-karts, and all the snack stalls and transportation rides you can afford. You can also purchase a variety of plants, trees, flowers, and other fun decorations like statues, and some themed items based on stuff like Alice in Wonderland or some of the real-world locations. you have plenty of ways to customize and build your ideal party. The game also had 2 expansions. I didn't get a chance to see when those 2 came out, but I know the 2 of them added in some more items and things you can build, new maps, all that good stuff, as well as adding a few in like the real world locations. Don't have a whole lot to say about Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's you're managing your own theme parks, but I always enjoyed replaying this game throughout the years, especially when I first got it on PC. I think I actually got the game shortly after it came out, if I remember right. I don't know how I ended up getting it, but I know that my parents bought it for me because my dad liked to play a few games on the computer as well. Nothing with like shooting or anything like that. Just kind of these like games where you could do like the Tycoon kind of stuff. But we ended up getting this one. And I remember playing this one a lot with friends and family as I grew up. Usually we would work together to make, the craziest parks that we could to succeed. Like sometimes I know on one place that was I think it was the second one in particular, we made a kind of Halloween themed park because it was taking place in like this old airfield, and so it's like, hey, you know what, it's kind of fall themed place, let's make a Halloween one. I even used this game once for a science project to demonstrate velocity, which is pretty awesome that the teacher let me do that in the game, not gonna lie. It's pretty fun making that the roller coasters that we used to show that with my teammates. That was fun. And revisiting the game over the years, one way or another, it's always been one of those games that, gets my creativity running on all cylinders, watching what people do, or finding out some new details about like, hey, here's some stuff you could do to improve your designs, or stuff you could do to add some fun to your park or thrill to your park. There's a great channel on YouTube. I don't remember the guy's full name. It's like Marcel Vo or something like that. He has a lot of great resources on the Roller Coaster Tycoon games, and there's a pretty good modding community out there for Roller Coaster Tycoon as well. So if you happen to pick this game up on, it's either like Good Old Games, and I think maybe it's also on Steam. These are fun and classic Tycoon games that are pretty easy to understand. There's a lot you can do to customize them and make them the way you make your parks the way you want to make them. And you still have plenty of wiggle room then to complete some of the goals in some of the parks. So that's really fun. But yeah, any of you guys have any experience playing Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and or 2?
So I haven't played them, but I remember my little brother really liked these games. And I remember watching him play and seeing all the little tiny happy and angry customers walking around the park as he built it up. And seemed interesting. And you bringing up using this game as a science project reminded me that in middle school, I'm a big fan of Tecmo Super Bowl, as we've talked about before, and I ended up using that game in an English essay in middle school, just talking about the game. So I thought that was fun to see that you used it as a science project.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
That's cool.
I don't remember the exact project, but we basically had to demonstrate velocity and like how there can be different factors that play into it. So I remember we did one coaster that had more of like safety precautions to it because we did it in like the free edit mode. So we built one that was more of had more of like the safety precautions where it like had the slow lift chain. It wasn't like quite as extreme to kind of show like, okay, well, a controlled environment, you'll have this sort of result. And then we made one that just launched the people up crazy fast, and they were going like 120 miles an hour. Our teacher was watching it. He's like, okay, yeah, if anybody was actually on this ride, their necks would have snapped by this point here. It was so cool he let us do it because we just had fun building them too, and just being like, okay, well, because we got to put in our creativity to it, but we also got to put in like, okay, well, with this roller coaster we built, we implemented these safety features. We did such and such and such to help create a controlled environment. So yeah, gotten a lot of fun out of this game over the years, and it's awesome too that it's been so well supported by modders and everything. Like even to this day and age, like it's cool that all you got to do, like if you just buy an official copy, you can just apply a mod, and it's like, hey, now you can do all this stuff between both of the games. You can access stuff that might have only been in the first or second one. You can do it in all of them now, and there's like other fun creative tools like that. But yeah, these are definitely some classic Tycoon games.
Speaking of snapping necks, did you ever do like where you have the little short entry path to the park and get everybody lined up on there and then have a coaster derail right down the path?
Jesus.
You know what? I didn't do that one, but I did do it where I would launch a coaster off into a big pool of water, like a lake.
Oh yeah.
It's the funniest thing too, because regardless what it hits, it explodes. So I just like to imagine that it's like super explosive water when you do that. And the last thing you hear is a scream of like, ah!
Oh yeah, death coasters are fun to build.
Oh yeah.
They were a little more interesting in the third one because 1 and 2 were isometric.
Yeah.
And the third one was actually fully 3D. But yeah, I put a lot of time into those games too. And like you said, the mods are crazy, and even just the patches after the original games came out to fix like pathfinding and bugs in the original games. They fixed so much stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it's cool that there is still so much support for, like, there was so much support back then, and there's like still a lot of fan support, nowadays. It's really cool, I think, because it just shows that, a lot of these people, like, whether they were like my age and kind of grew up with them, or if they were a little older, whatever the case, that there's, a fan base that wants to try and keep these games, to be accessible for, just about anybody that gets to them, regardless of when they played it. So, I mean, I think that's awesome.
So kind of as a squirrel, not related to PC gaming, but I love pinball. And they actually came out with a PC pinball game that was based on Roller Coaster Tycoon, kind of called Thrill Ride.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't remember who published that, but I had a lot of fun with that too, as a side note.
That's kind of cool. I never knew about that. It's pretty neat. Look into that one.
Looks like it's on iBandware.
I know Chris Sawyer. He's done a lot of different kinds of like PC games. I want to say he did something with trains too, and I think that's sort of what led him to create Roller Coaster Tycoon, because he enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, Transportation Tycoon.
That's what it is. Thank you, Transportation Tycoon.
That was fun too, but we had so much trouble getting it to run on later PCs to get it run well.
That's why GOG exists. They do a good job of
fixing all that
updating
crap.
it for the
Or
that is
dumbing it down is to make it play.
Or they've got whatever they do to convert and make it playable on the modern systems.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's why I had that pinball game. It was the developers Dynamix, published by Sierra.
Sierra with the finger in it again.
Oh, Sierra.
All right, so Pendy, let's go with you again.
Okay, so my next game is Silent Service 2, or Silent Service Double Deuces Wild. No, it's simply Silent Service 2, a sequel to the 1985 hit Silent Service. This game had you command a submarine during World War II in the Pacific Ocean. It was developed by the game developer and publisher Microprose, no relation to Microsoft, who is famous for games such as XCOM and Civilization. It was released for the Amiga in 1991 and the Atari ST and MS-DOS for home PCs in 1990. Fun fact, the Atari ST was part of a somewhat popular and cheap home computer line. I had never heard of it before doing my research, and it turns out it's probably because 75% of their home PC market was in Europe. But yeah, I had no idea that Atari did like computers as well as consoles. I ended up logging many hours playing this game, playing cat and mouse with Japanese warships with my submarine. It was great. This game had many modes. You could choose to do training sessions, fight against ships in a single war patrol. You could fight in a famous historical battle or attempt an entire war career during the span of World War II in the Pacific. It's weird because I usually don't have the patience for stealth games, but this one I really liked. And my dad would play this game too, and we would swap war stories with each other, which was really fun. I also think another reason I enjoyed this game, despite not usually liking games with major stealth elements in them, is that I really enjoy a good submarine movie such as The Hunt for Red October. I just love the suspense it entails, and I love when other genres do similar setups, such as in some Star Trek stories. Now, this game didn't pull any punches. If you were sloppy, you were easily blown out of the water by depth charges or the guns of the enemy ships. Taking out troop transports, supply ships, and the big game of battleships and aircraft carriers were really satisfying. Now, taking out the big boys, those battleships and aircraft carriers, was very difficult because they're so entirely massive and heavily guarded by other patrol ships. So you could give yourself a break in the game, though. It actually did have 4 levels of difficulty, ranging from introductory to ultimate. And to be honest, I can't remember which difficulties I did as a kid, but it sure wasn't ultimate. Ultimate, not at that age. I was like 10 or 11 when this game came out. So, and if you did career mode, you could choose which port your sub was docked out of. And over the years of the war, you would get submarine upgrades, sometimes entirely new submarines that were supposed to be consistent with what was available at the time. So as you took out your sub out on patrol on the world map, there would be an accelerated timeline, and the game would show you little historical battle snippets as you patrolled. So you also got to learn a lot about the war in the Pacific as you were hunting for your ships. So I also enjoy American history. So this was another fun part of the game for me as well. I really liked that part of it. So I got to see like, oh, hey, Manila has fallen, or this battle is going on, or in Midway, and all this other stuff. So as you're patrolling around, your crew would have sightings of ships, and they'd give you reports. And this report would have such information as like water depth, time of day or night, and like what visibility is out there. So you could choose to engage or not, whether or not you thought it was too risky. Because sometimes it could be far away. Sometimes they'll just put you in the middle of a whole convoy. You kind of had to look at the clues of the report and see what you might run into. And then it was just a matter of hunting down your targets and hopefully blowing them out of the water. You had views of the bridge, the local map, outside if you were above the water, the periscope. There was a damage report for all the different parts of your ship and various gauges. So depending on how successful you were in the game with your score and sinking ships, you could get like various citations and medals from the Navy. It was pretty in-depth, and there was a lot of strategy to it. And you could even launch debris that you could act as like a decoy for enemy ships to go after, or to kind of pretend to play dead when you're pinned down and hope that they would stop trying to blow you up. I have a lot of good memories of playing this game when I was a kid. And if you are interested in playing this game, you can actually find it for sale for computer gaming platforms such as Steam, GOG, Good Old Games, and Retroism.
Nice.
I didn't think I remembered this game, but now going and looking at some videos of it, I do remember this game.
Oh, yeah. It was pretty popular at the time.
Yeah. I completely forgot about that game. That game was fun.
Yeah.
I actually never heard about the game, but looking into it, I'm definitely going to try it out. Hunt for Red October is like one of my favorite movies. So as soon as you said that, you caught my attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly where my brain went. A little bit later than World War II, but you know.
Yeah, it was a very entertaining game at the time. I really enjoyed it as a kid.
Nice. Well, I know, Pendy, you're going to talk a little bit with me here about some entertaining games. I was going to bring up the Heroes of Might and Magic games. And 1, 2, and 3, at least, came out in the 90s. I graduated high school in 96, and I can't remember when the first one came out, but I had it 95, 96, and I went to a magnet school like 24 miles from my house. Growing up on the beach in Florida, there wasn't a kid within like 5 miles of me that went to my same high school. For at least my first year, second year, there was one. And then we moved my senior year, which wasn't a big deal because I was still going to the same high school. And there was actually like another kid nearby. Like I was like, oh man, I'm moving away from the one kid that's actually near me. It turns out in an apartment complex, like 2 blocks away from me, there was a kid. His name was Wee Ling Zhang. If you're out there listening, Wee, I still remember you, buddy. One of the few people, like growing up at the beach when I was young, there was like that one that it was in high school, but honestly, it was just a bunch of old people on the beach. It's Florida. Who lives on the Barrier Islands, a bunch of old people. And when we moved into about 2 miles inland, there was a kid across the street. There was just 2 years younger than me. That was great. We'd play football in the cul-de-sac with him. And then, this kid, a couple doors down, went to my school, was in the same program as me. And he would come over and we would play Heroes of Might and Magic 1. I remember we would do the, I think there was a hot pass option. I can't remember if we did that. I know sometimes we played together. Sometimes we might have played against each other. But it's basically a hexagonal strategy game. Mm-hmm. There's a world map. You have towns. Your towns can build troops, and you take your little heroes on horses between your towns to collect your troops, and you can have multiple heroes. So basically, you have multiple armies moving around, and there's all these things to do on the world map. You're picking up resources. You're collecting. You can actually get unit building areas from take them over. Usually not too many. That's what you upgrade your city for. Resources. There's resource development, like you need crystals, you need wood, you need ore, and you could take over a mine and have that producing 2 ore a day or whatever it is for you. And I just remember the first one was it was fine. I loved it. It was a great game when I was playing in 95, 96, and then kind of totally forgot about the series, went off to college. And I laughed that I would make Dwayne proud. I want to say it was 99 that I was working at a school, kind of had some time between tutoring one kid, tutoring another, had an hour or two. And I was like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll just run up the road to Target and walk around. Our good old Delicious Dwayne's favorite store in the entire world. So I'm walking around Target and I kind of walk past the computer section and like head on a swivel, like, whoa, what did I just see? Holy crap, there's 3 Heroes of Might and Magics now. And picked up the 3-pack, never played the 1 again, but played 2 until my curiosity got the better of me and immediately jumped into 3. And oh my God, I loved Hero of Might and Magic 3. It was just bigger. It was better. There were more options, more different types of cities. Cause there was, you could play as the classical humans and you'd have little, I think it was like peasants that would fight with pitchforks. Mm-hmm. And of course you'd have knights. I think their highest unit were angels and archangels. You could recruit if you built your town up to the biggest thing. But then, you could play as different kind of people with orcs and trolls and griffins. If you were the magical user, the good magical user had griffins, I remember, and pixies and all these different things. But it was a hexagonal turn-based strategy model. You'd move your people on hexagonal tiles. Each one would have, the little peasants could maybe only attack the people right in front of them. And the angels could like fly in, take a whack at somebody, and then fly back to where they were. So sometimes in certain units had the ability to like hit people without getting hit back, because a lot of times, for the most part, if you hit somebody, they hit you back. So you might walk over with your 100 peasants and stab like 2 gigantic trolls, taking some of the hit points away for the one, but then that troll might whack you and suddenly you go from having 100 peasants to like 80. Because the amount of hit points that they would do would just dwindle your numbers down. And gosh, the 3, I remember playing the story mode and just going on and on and on for that. And I don't think I got them. I remember hearing somebody talk about it one time, but I know 3 like had expansions that you could buy afterwards. Extra CDs worth of content. But I say 3 also had the campaign editor where you could make your own campaigns and download them from websites and everything. And oh gosh, and sometimes I would just hit 3 and like auto generate a campaign where there'd be a huge map and it was up 99% of it was shrouded by the darkness. So you had to branch out, explore, you'd find things, and then you'd have your little guy with like 2 peasants in his party and he'd run into a hero from one of the other factions and get his ass kicked right away. Then you're like, oh damn, I went too far in the exploring. But I loved these games. I played the hell out of 1, not so much 2, because I got it along with 3, so my curiosity got the better of me very quickly, and 3 was just great. And Pendy, I understand you played it with people in your neighborhood too.
Yeah, I think I played a little bit of 2 or 3 somewhere, but I can't remember where exactly. But since this came out in 96, a couple years before I went off to college, this would have been one that we played in the neighborhood. We had a neighborhood house where that was kind of like the central focus point of all the neighborhood kids, where we'd hang out a lot. And we'd play like Tecmo Super Bowl on their NES and all sorts of games. And they had like a black box, so they had all the different cable channels and whatnot that we could watch. And they had a nice computer, and we played various computer games. And one of the games that we loved to play was Heroes of Might and Magic 1. And you could play, like you were talking about, you could play multiplayer. So we had a bunch of kids that would hang out there. So I think I forget up to how many players you could do at once, but we'd have like at least 4 people going, where they would all be building up their towns and whatever race of like monsters or people that they would have. There's a lot of them. And that was just so much fun to just take turns, building up your towns, collecting those resources, going out and, killing monsters and whatnot. And then eventually finding each other on the map and then battling with each other. So that was
that's
very
when it went down.
Yeah. Like there's a big lead up time of like kind of building up your city and your resources, but then eventually you would explore around, and because everything started out as like a blackness, and it would reveal itself as you would explore, and then you'd be like, oh crap, there's my rival, and then you can start attacking each other, and that's where things would get really interesting. But yeah, I remember me and the friends that would hang out there, we had a lot of fun playing this game all the time. It was a great game.
I know, reminiscing about it, at one point, somebody mentioned like, "Oh, hey, have you tried the Braveland games?" And I'm like, "What, Braveland?" And got it for Switch, and I'm looking right now; it's on sale. If you hear this, probably the day or the day after we release it, it's down from $15 to $3. But it's these games called Braveland, and basically they're just very little exploration. They're more of this game on a rail. But I played through the first two pretty quickly and really had a lot of fun. I heard the third one gets way more expansive. It's got pirates and different islands and whatever, but basically the same kind of combat and the same kind of small amount of resource gathering and whatever. But for $3, this was good. But I know Heroes of Might and Magic went on. I believe there's up to 7 of them now, although they are not all made. I would definitely suggest looking at the Metacritic scores or something like that, because they switched ownership after 4. And yeah, there's a bunch of different, like maybe 6 was good, but 5 and 7 suck. I don't know. Once series starts getting sold and, you're 20, 30 years down the line, the quality is definitely hit and miss. But I think I even got one of these from GOG, maybe 3 or 4. I want to say 4 a couple of years later was the one I played the most, but no, definitely 3 I played the hell out of, and 1. But they were fun games. Explore, turn-based battles. Usually not much one for the strategy, but I did it with these, definitely. You ever play these, Woodus?
No, I know of them, but I never had these. I swear I had some Might and Magic game, but it wasn't these. Was there something else under the Might and Magic?
Oh, there's just Might and Magic.
That's what I had.
And those were more, I think they were first person.
Yeah, okay, that's what I had.
Dungeon. Then.
Yep. I had a couple of those. I never had this set though.
Yeah, the Might and Magic are more first person games.
Yeah, because I had that, and then like Eye of the Beholder, which was a first person D&D game.
All right. Well, let's see. Who are we back to? Yangus, you've done a couple of years. Woodus, we'll get back to you.
All right. My last one is StarCraft, which is a real-time strategy game. Yeah, big game. I know this is still used in competition a lot of places in the world, but it deals with 3 races, the Terran, the Zerg, and the Protoss, each with their own skill trees to build up armored units, defensive units, mining, and they each have their own strengths. Like Zerg you can make a bunch of the little Zergling guys, and you can just bum rush into an attack. The Terrans have huge battle cruisers and stuff like that. Big reason I just threw this one in there because I'm sure a lot of people know of StarCraft. I played through the story, both the first one and Brood War. I own the second one but haven't played it. But this was the first game where all of us would drag all of our PCs and our monitors and all of our crap over to somebody's house and have LAN parties with. So we'd get 5 to 6 guys all bringing our computers over with a Switch laying in the middle of the room, and we'd all hook up and start playing StarCraft. And my wife could kick my ass at this game every time. She's really good at resource management games, and to this day I probably still couldn't beat her at it. But yeah, I mean, I know the second one's out. Like I said, I own it, haven't played it, but I played through both campaigns, and they get tough through Brood War. I remember that, but I always picked the Terrans. For some reason, I like the little human dude. She was always good with Protoss. But if you're good with Zerg and you can bum rush and wipe somebody out early and fast, it could be a quick victory too.
I believe I was always the Protoss. They had the shields, right?
Yep, they were the little robotic guys.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking at them right now. Yep. This was the first game that I would monopolize the telephone at home and dial up and play random people on the internet.
Battle.net.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a game that I wasn't really into because I never really got into RTS games. But wow, like not only was this like very popular in America, but this was like super popular in South Korea, and they got amazingly good at this game. They were like globally known for how good they were. And then on the other end of that, they also achieved some notoriety on this game because there was this guy in 2005 that was at a Korean internet cafe and played 50 consecutive hours of StarCraft, and he died.
Oh,
I
that
remember
was this
hearing
game?
about that. Yeah.
I remember that too now.
Yeah, just
Ouch.
didn't really eat or anything, and just he died. It was shocking.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it never got to that point with me, but I had to throw that one in there just because that was our first LAN party game that we all had.
I actually played it quite a bit in LAN parties too, but it was that one game I'd always sit out at because I would rage super badly with that game. I was terrible.
Yeah, I usually got smoked, but usually we were drinking at the same time too, so after 3 or 4 beers I didn't really care.
Yeah, that's true. That helps.
Oh god, I'm looking it up. Cause of death was heart failure induced by exhaustion and dehydration. Jesus. But like I said, this took off in South Korea, and they were, not only known for this, but just known for just having such amazingly great players when it came to this game, when it came to playing people. So they got famous for this, and now their big thing is League of Legends. But yeah, back in the day, it was all about StarCraft for them.
Cool.
Yeah,
Lots of esports over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even before League of Legends, StarCraft 2 was big there too.
Yep.
I know a lot of top players here in the States actually moved to South Korea just to play and train there.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was
It was that big.
It was the place to be for it.
All right, another iconic game that we've mentioned tonight. And Yangus, let's begin our last. Actually, Woodus just did his third, so
Yep.
We'll continue our final games with yours.
I don't have a last game. I already did both of mine.
No, that's right. You did 2 and 1. That's right. Humongous and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did
Pajamas.
the
Sam,
two
those
for.
you did a 2 for 1. All right, so that we're almost done here. Then that brings us to Pendy, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yes. So my last game is called Septerra Core. It is an active time battle RPG developed by Valkyrie Studios and published by Monolith Productions. This was released in America in 1999 for Windows PCs. In the world of Septerra Core, there's a huge biocomputer that is surrounded by these 7 layers of floating continents. And in this world, there's a prophecy that all the continents will someday line up perfectly so that with these 2 special keys, you can open up the core. There's this fanatical cult called the Chosen who is trying to force this to happen and gain the supposed power the core can grant them. And this series of events that they're trying to force to make this happen is threatening to take down the entire world in the process. So you play as the main character named Maya, who is a junk scavenger on one of the continents, who is pulled into this struggle. And during the course of the game, you're going to recruit 8 other characters to join your party. You can have parties of up to 3 characters at a time. And the gameplay, the setting, and the overall style of the game is very heavily influenced by Japanese RPGs. You'd see more of it as the years went on, but a Western-made Japanese console-style PC-exclusive RPG was incredibly rare back then. Like, according to one of the reviews that I watched recently on this game, it may have been the first one ever in that style made by a Western company. What you'll notice that is more in line with a lot of Western RPGs is the NPC interactions. Between the 9 playable characters that you can choose from, there's almost an endless amount of dialogue options that you can have with all the NPCs as you traverse the world map from town to town. And not only that, all of the conversations that you have in this game are fully voice acted. And thankfully, it's pretty good quality voice acting, which was a lot more rare back in 1999. In the battles, your characters have an active time bar with 3 different levels. As those levels slowly charge up, you can choose to take your turn to attack. So you can get in like a level 1 attack really quickly, or you can wait for a much larger attack with level 3. Now, however, as you're waiting for level 3, this is going to leave you more vulnerable to more enemy attacks. The unique part of this game is that there are no individual magic point bars. You all share what's called a core. So, in line with the theme of the game. Your entire party shares this core. So if the core bar runs out of points, then the whole party is SOL for doing any spells. You share that bar together. And the spells are done with certain items called fate cards. And those are cards that you can find throughout the game that have different spells. And you can combine these fate cards together with your different party members so that you can do combos between like 2 characters or all 3 characters. And you can make these fun combos that are similar to games like Chrono Trigger for big spells and summons. Fun fact, certain characters have the ability to steal from the shops where you buy equipment and items. But if you get caught, the store will raise all of its prices. So you kind of get, you got to be careful if you try and do that. Now, the graphics for the time for this game were pretty damn good. It's large sprites on 3D pre-rendered backgrounds, and the world has a fun steampunk feel to it. You can find this game pretty cheap, too, on sites that we've mentioned before, such as Steam, GOG, and this other place called Zoom. It is a fully fleshed out, incredibly immersive, 45-hour JRPG-like game, and I highly recommend it.
I have never heard of this, but I know Brurian wanted to be here tonight before work intervened, and this was one he was excited that you were going to talk about, right?
Yeah, he did not realize that many other people even knew about this game. It kind of flew underneath the radar at the time, but it was coming out in the big heyday of all the Final Fantasy games and stuff that were gaining a lot of popularity. And it was, this game was kind of in that style, and it was very interesting to see a Western take on a Japanese style type RPG. It was a lot of fun.
Neat.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, but it looks cool looking at some videos for it.
Yeah, I think some of the sites where you can find it for sale right now, it varies in prices, but I saw one of them was selling it for like $5. So that's $5 for like a 45-hour JRPG, which is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Oh man, look at those. Look at those graphics.
Yeah, those 1999 graphics.
That's like straight out of PS1 era, as everybody knows, my absolute favorite.
Oh, yes. Very favorite.
All right, well, I will wrap this game up with a game that every time I hear similar games, they always mention back to like, oh, inspired by this one. I don't know where or how I got it. Might have been, I used to, when I was younger, my grandparents would bring me to the mall, and my grandmother used to take piano lessons at a place in the mall. And every now and then she'd, I don't know why, I'd go with them. Like, I feel like I was 15, 16, 17 anyway. Like, it wasn't like I was being babysat or anything. But I distinctly remember in high school, like, going to the mall with them and sitting through their piano lessons or just hanging out at the mall while they were doing it. And she'd give me some money sometimes. And I used to always go over to Babbage's, always head into Babbage's, the computer store or the bookstore. And I know 100%, like some money she gave me one time is how I got into reading a lot of Star Trek books back in the day. But also I want to say I used to just get bargain bin or whatever sitting around computer games. So one I picked up was Masters of Orion 2. Never played the first game. I tried to go back to it for a podcast a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, screw this. I'm not doing this. But it's what they call one of those 4X games. And the X stands for Explore, Expand, Exploit, and Exterminate. Basically, you're building an empire. You start off on a home planet. Masters of Orion 2 had a bunch of different races, and all these races had different kind of bonuses. Basically, this was like Civilization in space. The original Civilization, you build your cities, you explore the world, you make treaties, you build units to fight and whatever. Well, Masters of Orion 2 was exactly like that. But they were all on planets. Instead of cities, you'd have planets, and certain solar systems would have multiple planets that you could habitate. And just like in Civ, where, the Americans would be better at this, and the Indians would be better at this, and the Russians would be better at this. Well, all the different races in Masters of Orion had their bonuses. Some were, they would breed faster, so your populations of your worlds would grow way faster than other ones. Some would have better research capabilities, so you'd be exploring new technology all the time. Some were better at fighting. Some were better at whatever, diplomacy or secrecy. There was some that were like stealth, and like all your spies would always work or something like that. But you'd basically try to conquer the galaxy. There was 3 ways to win. Basically, you take out every other race in the entire game. You do that, you're good. When you would make a game, there was a little toggle that you could put on that there would be something called an Antaran fleet. And basically what this did would have, like, every now and then randomly you might have ships attacked by this race called the Antarans, and anytime you fought them, like, usually it was death, like you'd be a goner. But if you got strong enough, you could build it. It had the right technology. You could build a dimensional gate that you could send to your fleet to destroy them, and you'd win the galaxy because everybody in the galaxy was like, "You're so amazing! You destroyed this like advanced creation. You win." And then there was another way that I never once did. That if like all the galaxy got settled, or I think if you explored all the black regions, I don't think you had to have every planet, because some of these times you could have like 50, 60, 100 star systems out there. And while other people would be expanding and exploring, you would be too. And I'm reading this now because I remember the instruction booklet talking about it, but I'm like, I never did this. You could win if the whole galaxy got expanded. There'd be like this galactic council, and they're like, we're going to vote on who should rule the galaxy. It's all explored now, so we better make peace and pick a ruler so we don't constantly war with people. And I guess based on points of what you did, how many your technology and your fleets and everything, you'd get points, and people would vote for you, and you could win, be elected galactic president. I just destroyed people all the time.
Platty the Destroyer.
Platty the Destroyer. And it was always through technological stuff. I remember I never liked being the humans. There was a race that their technology like worked twice as fast as everybody else, and I would just race ahead and do that. When you built starships, I mean, you didn't have very many. You'd maybe get a fleet together of like, especially in the beginning of the game, your fleets would consist of like 3 or 4 units or something like that. And you could click and drag them to other places, and it would take a certain number of turns because, again, just like Civ, you'd have your turn to do all your moving, all your setting, set your planets to build this, that, and then you'd click the button and every other computer would take your turn. Heck, just like Heroes of Might and Magic did it too. The battles, you could actually get in there and do like nitty gritty down to the, hey, I'm going to make my battleship go here and this, do that. And I'll be honest, I never was good at grand strategy, fleets of ships versus other stuff. I just always would click auto because I always knew my ships were technologically superior. I'd have laser 3, and I'm like, I bet those bastards don't even have like photon bombs yet. So, I would always take out technology people. That was my strategy for winning. I really don't remember if there was like a story or certain campaigns. I don't think there was. It was basically like you just turned it on and you're like, okay, I want to play a game. And it'd be like, how big do you want the galaxy? Do you want like 20 star systems, which would like give enough room for like 3 races? Or do you want like the 90? And I'd always pick like the super large galaxy because kind of like when I was playing Pharaoh, if I was going to sit down and play, I'd want to play for like 3 or 4 hours. I'd want this game to go on for a while, or I got to save it and I'm going to come back tomorrow and beat the other half. I wasn't in it for the race. I just wanted a large experience at the time. As I started getting into the JRPGs, you know, what was the era, the 90s and everything, you know, it'd be there right out there on the box, like over 60 hours of game time. I was all for that, especially with the computer games back then. So I just had a blast with this. And then in the late 90s, I want to say this is like kind of a mid 90s game. In the late 90s, they came out. We mentioned LucasArts before. Actually, Masters of Orion 2, published by Micropose. I know somebody mentioned that company. But then LucasArts did their own take on this. Basically copy and pasted everything. And it was called Star Wars Rebellion. I absolutely love that. I was looking at screenshots recently, and I kind of like remember the shade of green that they used to denote the rebellion and everything. And it was awesome because all the little generals you would get would be players from the game, and you could assign generals to your fleets, and of course, what could all the ships you build? You'd be building the Corellian corvettes and the
Nice.
Lambda class this or this. It was just the exact same game, but Star Wars skin. And what's hilarious is I was looking this up the other day. I guess it came out in '98. I was looking it up the other day, and I'm like, man, that game was so great. I remember that. Like, I played it at least as much as Masters of Orion 2, whatever. And I look, and it got. I'm looking at the Wikipedia, and it had, most disappointing game of the year for GameSpot's best and worst of '98. And IGN gave it the Underachiever Award for PC games, or was nominated for the Underachiever Award for PC games. And I'm like, what the heck? I love that game. So I don't know. I didn't get too deep in the weeds why the Star Wars one was bad, because I absolutely loved it. It was Masters of Orion 2 just reskinned. And these are the kind of games that, what Aust had to dump off. We were getting too late in our recording tonight. But I think it's Stellaris is the big one that's out now. That is basically the big-time successor to this grand galaxy-spanning thing that's out now. And pretty funny that I bring up the Star Wars one, because just a couple of weeks ago, basically a Star Trek version of Stellaris came out. So I know Austin and I were chatting with that a couple of weeks ago. I know he got it right at launch, and I'm like, I'll wait a little bit. But first of all, I don't even know if my PC can run these games these days. I got like a 6-year-old HP, whatever. I don't have a graphics card.
Are you talking Starfield, the one that just came out this year?
I don't. The game that he plays is Stellaris, and looking at it, I'm like, it is curious. A grand galaxy strategy game. And even looking at it, I'm like, I can see where this is, has its roots in like the Masters of Orion type games.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that the BioShock or Bethesda? No, it's not Starfield. Starfield is Skyrim in space.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Stellaris is the strategy game. And I want to say Aust has talked about Stellaris on one of our podcasts in the past. But no, basically it was civilization in space and just building an empire, expanding through the galaxy. I thought the graphics at the time were amazing, like just zooming in on little planets and watching them spin. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Look at that planet. It was probably Star Trek The Next Generation-ish graphics at that point, but they didn't have to do much. They're, the size of a dime on my good old VGA screen.
Yeah. I remember somebody having that game, but I never played it. I think I borrowed it from him and tried it. And
Gosh, I remember, I'm trying to think, like I can actually imagine the room I was sitting in that summer. So it had to be within like the last 5 years, probably about 5-6 years ago, because before that room didn't exist. My parents have a mountain house, and we built a bedroom up in the attic and filled it all in, had a contractor there. But I did some of the work with my dad one year. Gosh, my youngest was a baby. So, yeah, that room's only been up there about 6 years in the dozen they've owned the place. But I remember once, I don't even know how I came across it. I think I was just bored one summer. Maybe I forgot to bring, it wouldn't have been my Switch. Probably forgot to bring my 3DS one summer. And I was like, I just had my iPad. And I was like, what am I going to play on my iPad? Dragon Quest 5 or 6 again. Like, been there, played that already through on my iPad. But I found basically a clone of Masters of Orion 2. It was someone who, like, hey, this IP's been gone for a long time. Why don't we basically recreate it as an iPad app? And it worked great as a touch, and, it's just a mouse game anyway from the 90s. So it was very easy to do. And holy crap, I feel like I played the crap out of that on my iPad for a couple weeks while on vacation before. But I really loved those grand strategy games back then. Now, they're so... what I think about the city building now, and what do they have now? City skyscapes, city
skylines.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I kind of looked at that.
Just came out.
It did. Yeah, the second one just came out. I look at those, like how much more nitty gritty you can get into now, and I really try to, like, oh man, I shouldn't. I should not get back into these. Like, if I thought some other day, wow, it's actually Skylines 2 was released today as of this recording.
Yeah. If you, just as a warning, don't play Stellaris. You will be addicted to it. It is a super good game.
That's what Aust has said.
Yeah.
And he's tried to talk to me about that a couple times, and I'm like, dude, man, if I get into that, like, I remember the Masters of Orion and my the Star Wars version, Star Wars Rebellion. Like I played those forever, and I just look at these now, and I'm like, in 20 years, how much has gameplay evolved? How much more is there to it? I don't know. I don't want to get back into that learning curve.
Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole. I had a friend who put like 2,000 hours during the pandemic on that game, and those are rookie numbers in that community. There's people that have like 4,000 to 5,000 hours into that game. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, but I have a hard time sitting in front of the PC for long, so I don't want to do something that will make that change. I like my Switch in bed, my Vita on the couch. So, but that's it with mine. Masters of Orion 2, or really Star Wars Rebellion, just grand strategy games, out of which there are better ones at this point out there, but those are my 90s ones.
So you guys had mentioned Myst before, which I never really played, and I never played the parody Pissed either, but have you guys played the porn parody Moist? No, just me?
John Goodman do that one too?
Probably.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, before we end, I'm going to insert some audio we got from Virtual Mattcraft. He wanted to be here today, but had another work emergency in his business. There's a lot of people coming in and out at night, and he got called in to deal with some jackass tonight. So we will insert his audio right here.
Good eve. Coming from the past, today is Mattcraft, as usual. Today, giving our 90s computer topic, I've got a couple of lovely ones for you guys. The first one's a little bit scummy. It is Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers, coming to us a couple weeks before Christmas in 1993. This point-and-click adventure game stars an all-star cast, including Tim Curry, Mark Hamill, Star Trek's Michael Dorn, and Leah Remini. It focuses on the titular character, Gabriel Knight, a struggling novelist who owns a rare bookstore in the heart of New Orleans. He opts to do a research project for his next book on a recent spout of serial killings around the city that all have something to do with voodoo. Everything in the game is obviously point and click, played from a third person perspective. It plays over the course of several days. And you basically go around the city as Gabriel Knight, collecting clues, yada, 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 yada. You get the point. Unlike newer graphical adventure games that use context-sensitive cursors, the game makes use of action-specific cursors which perform the required action the player needs, provided they select that action's icon from the game bar. Kind of archaic, the old school walk, look, ask, talk, etc. Sins of the Fathers actually takes place in a world where supernatural forces, both good and evil, have existed throughout human history, with any becoming a threat to humanity being combated by people who specialize in such powers. The story incorporates the mythology and history of voodoo, both the Americanized version found in Louisiana and the West African version, mixing real elements with a fictionalized version that really brings the story together. I'm not going to go too crazy about the plot, but it actually spans all across the world. You go from New Orleans to Germany, then to West Africa, and then back to New Orleans again by the end. Gabriel Knight is accompanied by his cop buddy Mosley and his single clerk at his bookstore, a graduate student. Let's see. The game was worked on by, oddly enough, where it gets a lot of its inspiration, by a lot of the team that worked on King's Quest VI. And it actually received it wasn't a major commercial hit, but it ended up becoming a cult classic. It spawned 2 sequels, The Beast Within, a Gabriel Knight mystery, and the next one is Gabriel Knight 3, Blood of the Sacred, Blood of the Damned. In the early 2010s, it actually received a remaster that, while it doesn't have the original cast, sadly, is still a very good pickup. Gabriel Knight, to me, was one of the first games that I actually played on a PC that I can remember. And I honestly just played it because it had Worf in it. I liked it. It was solid. Scared my Meemaw to death because it had voodoo in it. But even she came to appreciate the fact it had Luke from Star Wars in it as well. I wasn't a Star Wars nerd as a kid. I was a Trekkie. Can't help it. But otherwise than that, Gabriel Knight still remains one of my favorite games for the old school PC from back in the day. And in just a minute, I'll be able to get you guys going with Diablo. You descend the stairs of the ruined cathedral, sword in your hand, blood still on your boots from the man that you passed, begging you to avenge him. You hear a laugh, and then the game starts. Welcome to Diablo, released in January of 1997. It is a point-and-click adventure game where you play as either a sword-slinging warrior, a bow adept, rogue, or the spell-casting magician. Diablo is actually pretty simple. You are in the world of Sanctuary, a literal sanctuary in between the high heavens and the burning hells of Diablo's lore. Your game starts when the player character arrives in the ruined town of Tristram. Speaking with Cain the Elder as you go in, you immediately head to the cathedral that dominates over the entire town. You will travel through the church itself, catacombs, caves, and eventually hell itself, each with a mixture of the undead, animals, and demons. Diablo is known for being one of the first real action RPGs with online gameplay through the now legendary Battle.net platform. Playing online is honestly one of the first things that I remember for this game. We had internet at the house, and boy howdy did I use it, getting on Battle.net and joining hacked games all the time. You literally point and click and destroy everything that's in your way. And overall, the game itself has excellent pacing, graphics, which still stand up to today in my opinion. Personally, I always was partial to the warrior. Running through a dungeon with nothing but a sword and shield made it very, very awesome for me. Believe it or not, Diablo also had a semi-official expansion called Diablo Hellfire. It didn't really add to the story all that much. It gave it a couple alternate quests and some different graphics. It was kind of garbage. But one of the things that honestly came out for it that was probably the best thing was the PlayStation version. You had direct control of your main character's direction using the PlayStation controller. And like I said before, it holds up to today's standards. You can still buy Diablo today and play it on your PC. It's available through Battle.net. And it's just one of those games that I think I could honestly go back to again and again. Otherwise than that, I would definitely have to say, going beyond Diablo, there's obviously Diablo 2, which came out technically in 2000, but I'm sure there was a beta test or whatever. As we all know, it spawned Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Diablo 4, Diablo Immortal, comics, books. It is a franchise now. Playing that game when I was a kid, I never thought that it would come to that. I do have a bit of a story for y'all with Diablo. My Meemaw got it. Never thought in a minute that anything devilish or anything about it. But one of my relatives was very religious, and she tried to fight with Meemaw about me having it. In response, every single time until she died in '08. Sadly, that was before Diablo 3. If she saw Diablo 2 in a box at the store, and that means collector's edition, the Lord of Destruction pack, even the boxes that had the player's guides and everything in them, she would purposely buy it for me, wait until the relative was there, and then give it to me, just to spite her. I thought it was great. And that's it.
And that was Mattcraft with his 90s PC gaming memories. So that's it for this episode of Slime Time Sidequest. We hope all our memories of old classic and obscure or, really popular PC games got you excited to try some of these. Insert our unpaid advertisement for GOG.com and all of the lovely websites that Pendy brought up tonight. Hope these brought back some similar excellent memories for you or inspire you to go out and give something old a try.
Yeah, and remember, make sure that you get your floppy disks inserted, otherwise you won't be able to save your data.
I mean, you may want to go with a hard copy.
Yep. Inserting
the floppy disks was always the tricky situation. Wasn't a good look.
Yeah, and don't put them in upside down.
No. So, that's it for this episode of Slime Time, of course. And as I like to remind people often, we don't crowdsource or dynamically insert ads that y'all don't give two shits about. We're all grown-ass adults that like to talk about video games and make these horribly sexual innuendo jokes and talk about other topics that we enjoy. And we don't need a dime of your money to talk about Moist or Pissed or whatever else we're going to talk about. If you'd like to contribute to DQ fandom, feel free to head over to the Dragon's Den. Donate money to Woodus, who's right here. He's paid to keep those lights on for decades. Use one of his affiliate links. Buy a couple $1,000s worth of Switch stuff like I did last year. Maybe he'll get like $10 out of it. But we got Infinity Strash out recently. We've got Dragon Quest Monsters 3 coming. You're probably going to buy one of those. You go to Amazon, buy shit all the time. Click on Woodus's affiliate link. Help him out.
Yep. Or if you'd like, just start throwing money at your screen or your phone or your tablet or whatever you're doing. Maybe eventually
that's how it works.
It'll go through it just like
Osmosis.
like Alice through the Looking Glass. He'll just be sitting at work and all of a sudden a dollar bill just falls down onto his lap. He's like, oh, hey, look, it worked.
Well, that could be a whole different scenario.
Well, as long as it's not a floppy one, we should be okay.
Or maybe it works like the transitive property. My 7-year-old the other day, I told him, I was like, listen, dude, don't touch that. And he's like, can you go over and touch it? And then I'll just like touch your arm and then it'll be like, I'm touching it. So put some money on the screen, visit Woodus.com, and that's how it works. It'll just go to him.
Just throw your money.
Or throw it, be careful, throw bills, not coins.
Yeah. Go into the woods and throw some money in there. That'd be close enough. Because Woodus would.
Woodus. Yeah. We got it. Knock. All right, well, hasta la vista, baby.
Side quest complete, y'all.